Hello.
Hey,
How's it going?
good. Good to see you.
Good.
It's
For
it's
sure.
funny. We did the other video on you know, colonizing Canada on Canada Day, and
Right.
then we're doing this video on the colonizing of America the day after Independence Day or something, whatever
Right.
you want to call it, 4th of July for
Yeah.
America. So I wanted to real quick just I wrote a thing about the 4th of July. So even though this is the day after the 4th of July, I really want to expose the American colonization support that was before and continues.
Right.
So, anyways, America's 4th of July independence from the British Empire to me is actually the establishment of the American Empire. Things with stolen land, genocide, colonization, wars, and oppression, slavery, and discrimination has been to me what America could. That's why I always think it's crazy when they go, America, the land of the free. I'm like, the fuck kind of a nonsense is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free for who?
Exactly. It's like there's various leftist media groups. They put out like Frederick Douglass's "What is the 4th of July to a Slave?" Uh,
Yeah,
so
that's good.
yeah, yeah,
But that's definitely what I'm trying to say. And so when people say, especially to me, any America that's not aware and acknowledging and honoring its absolute horrid past can never make a fucking good future to me.
right.
It's like a person going into a drug rehab and goes, "Well, I'm going to stay a drug addict, just let
Yeah.
you know."
Like, why
In
even be
fact,
there? Yeah.
I'm going to talk about how great my life is as a drug addict, and then I want you to say you're proud to be my friend
Right.
as a drug addict or whatever. Anyways, my point is, I'm saying America is has this massive, hideous and continuing future. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
everything is fucking gone.
Right.
Oh, in fact, it's crazy to look at the bigotry that's continuing with the Supreme Court. It's just
Yep. Yeah. Pretty awful.
the system is not good. It's
No.
not a system of the people, by the people, for the people. I mean, that's the bullshit lie. That sounds closer to something I would call anarchism.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
For the people, by the people, with the people. Okay, yeah. What the fuck is this bullshit? Anyway,
Yeah, the way it was written, like the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and everything, the way it was written made it sound like they had anarchistic tendencies, but
and
they were
certainly
all
sounds way better than they ever did.
that's right. It way better than it ever was put into practice and way better like and then I mean the idea they were all slave owning, like they all owned people.
While they're
So
talking about the importance of freedom,
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
obviously
I
not
know, I
correct.
know. Like, we're not going to have any arguments about about how we feel about this
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
But that's also, I feel like sometimes it's too cliche. Like, oh, land back. I'm not saying that you do this, but I'm saying some people, or I'm sure liberals' perceptions of and leftists that we just randomly say shit, like or the conservatives think that we're just trying to give everything away, and not literally they're thieves. It's
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and literally you broke treaties, and you don't make sure that everyone is safe, and you don't care about human rights. The fucking lie.
yeah. The reason that we call it land back is because you took this without like
Right, you literally without treaties and stole it, and
yeah,
even made treaties saying you own the land, and then going, oh yeah, the Black Hills, this is yours. We don't want that. Wait, there's gold there.
we want it
Oh,
now. It's ours now.
you're gonna have to get off because you're attacking the gold miners. And
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, they're stealing gold on our reservation. Yeah, but you
yeah,
can't attack them. In fact, we're going to send the military to kick you out to protect them. Yeah,
yeah,
seriously. I mean, and then we're going to put fucking our president's faces in on this, Mount Rushmore, right?
yep,
On native land that we literally gave to them. So this is yours, and then said, no, wait a minute, there's something I want there. Get off that land.
yep,
I mean, it's yeah.
yeah.
So let's get going because I know we don't have as long today. So
Okay, so we're starting off with a few videos.
yeah,
Looks like, yeah. So in our script we have it says Native Americans in Florida. The Native Americans in Florida are the Ais, Appalachie, Calusa Creek, Mikosaki, Seminole, Timucua, and Yamasi.
Right, and the reason why we're addressing this, just so anyone's wondering, because me and Cory wanted to address where Cory lives and some, indigenous facts about where he lives and some indigenous facts about where I live in Florida now.
Yeah.
I'm actually from California, and I've lived in, I off the top of my head, I'll just say 8 different states. I mean, I've lived in Texas, Nevada. I lived in Washington, Oregon. I lived in Missouri. I lived in Georgia, Florida. Did I live in South Carolina? Maybe it was Georgia's, right near the border.
Right there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to. Yeah, I've lived like several places. So it's like, other than Hawaii for a while, I lived in several different places. So, and I was an ex-truck driver, so I drove 48 states of the United States, and I drove 4 provinces of Canada. So, I mean,
yeah, been all over.
But actually, like I told you, that's actually what made me start caring about different stuff in general. But then when I started really studying religion, that's when I really started, because I see religion is not disconnected from people.
Right.
So, an honest thinker that I am, I can't go, well, I'm just going to limit myself to the religion. Like, the fuck?
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll play the first video.
Yeah.
First map is 1581. Now, obviously, the history of this land goes back much farther than this date, because by the time the Europeans arrived, the territory we now call the United States was already populated by hundreds of different Native American groups. Only few of the names of those groups are shown here. And these people had been living on the continent for at least 15,000 years.
Pause 1 second. So, not all, and I know this makes some Native Americans not happy, but not all Native Americans came over in the first shot.
Right.
There's like that one other one showed there's 3. I think there's probably 5. There's multiple. Just keep going, but just so that people know, there's multiple entries in the United States. Yes, there are some that could even be maybe longer than 15,000.
Okay.
Just so people know that there's definitely that possibility, but there also is a big influx of the Destain speakers coming in between something like maybe 7,000 or 8,000 to 6,000 or something.
Okay.
So
there was, like you say, multiple.
Right. So this also, for me, well, this is important for religion, but also for culture and DNA and everything. I mean, there's Native Americans, as far as the Americas are considered, have like different ways they break it up into time frames. Like they call it arcane period and whatever. So they have these different things, and some of that relates. You can see when there's a massive change. Well, it's almost about the time that some of the stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, the most impactful, besides the first one, in a sense, the first migration, is the second migration. I think the second migration was the most impactful towards culture, religion, and stuff in the Americas.
Okay.
I feel. And you see a lot of like languages for the Americas. Most of them aren't past, in a sense, almost 7,000. And so you start to see that there really was, if you look at all things together. But anyways, I want to keep going, but
for sure,
I wanted to say that.
Okay.
Let me show you a better map of what Native America looked like before the Europeans arrived. This is a map made by my friend Aaron Carapella. It lists all the various Native American groups and where they were located before the Europeans arrived. And the best thing about this map is that it uses the name of each group based on what they call themselves in their own native tongues, rather than the more commonly used names which often come from Europeans. So, for example, instead of Cherokee, it shows Ani-Yanuya. Aaron's website is tribalnationsmaps.com. I'll put that link in the description if you want to check that out. So in 1581, we have only one European settlement in what is today the continental United States, and that is the Spanish settlement of St. Augustine. It was established about 70 years after Christopher Columbus first landed on the continent. So although most people know the line, in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, it's important to remember that it was quite a long time after that the Europeans actually started to colonize what is now the United States.
Pause for a second. Also, as this shows, he never, ever discovered, in a sense, North America or Canada.
Right. Yeah.
So for America to celebrate that he found America in 1492 is beyond.
It's kind of just nonsense.
It's utter nonsense. He didn't get the land. He freaking found what, the islands. I mean, that's the Cuba and Haiti and whatever, the Virgin Islands or something. I mean, and then South America. I mean, the dude, it. But once again, not only do we not start where we should, American history class, I don't know, the Native Americans, the history of America.
Right.
No, we start at a lie.
Yeah. No kidding.
1492, he found America. No, he didn't. Never fucking did. What the fucking hell? What is it with this pseudo fucking history bullshit?
Yeah, that's right.
So let's jump ahead 40 years to 1621. And this is when the Europeans actually start to arrive. By this point, the Spanish had explored all the way up the Rio Grande River and had a settlement in Santa Fe, which is now in the state of New Mexico. And along the Atlantic seaboard, we have two English settlements, one down here in Jamestown, in what the English called Virginia, after the Virgin Queen Elizabeth I, and one in Plymouth, close to Boston, in an area that
when
became
I learned
known
in America, right, for school, we learned about Plymouth and Jamestown, as if somehow when they landed, there was no one else. I mean, I'm not saying they said it outright, but they just don't teach anything else. They teach these, and here are these first people, and the first little settlement in English, failed, and there's other settlements we didn't even know about. I'm just saying, I know about it now, but I'm just making a comment that they didn't. Not only did they not teach us correctly who found America, because that's a total nonsense,
right?
But then they actually make it seem like only the European from England were the ones we need to learn about, as if the American, I feel, goes back to this thinking that America's empty. So you have these little settlements and you're just trying to make it and there's nobody else. This is total nonsense. I'm just saying, now that I know stuff, it's like, oh my God, this is hideous.
Yep.
Is New England. In between these two colonies, we also had a Dutch settlement, Fort Nassau, and up on the St. Lawrence River, we have Quebec, a French settlement. And if we zoom ahead to 1661, we can see that all these initial colonies have begun to grow. The French are building more settlements along the St. Lawrence, as well as in Acadia, which is what we call Nova Scotia today. And the English still have two separate areas that they are developing, with the New Netherlands in the middle. And Spain is mostly down here in what is today Mexico. Now, at this point, I feel it important to point out two very negative aspects of U.S. history. First is the fact that obviously all this European colonization was not good for the Native Americans. They were pushed off their lands, and many of them ended up dying from European diseases because they had no immunity to them. And this fact is not something that should be skipped over or forgotten. I think it's also important to remember that there are actually descendants of many of these groups still living in America today, and that their history and culture needs to be given the utmost respect and consideration when it comes to decision-making that affects them. The second negative aspect of U.S. history is, of course, slavery, and that's shown over here. Between 1619 and 1859, almost 500,000 Africans were forced against their will to come to the...
This reminds me, see how it says 1619. So there's sometimes I've heard, Patriot Americans get all pissed off if someone said that somehow slaves have been here before the American continent.
Right.
I just go, these people are so, like I showed you that one picture of that guy who said that the moon landing didn't happen. Showed the picture of them probably in the desert with their helmets off, doing practice run, and this guy is saying, "Oh, see, they forgot they were on the moon." I'm like, my God. Well, I'm just saying, imagine saying you're a patriot of a country, but absolutely not knowing fuck all about its real history. How are you a fucking patriot? Yeah. You're a fucking loser. You think you're a patriot? You don't even know America.
Yeah.
Anyway.
American colonies and later to the various U.S. states to work the land. And this fact is also one that should not be skipped over or forgotten. Any history of the U.S. that does not include the history and experiences of African Americans is not complete. It's not just about slavery, but slavery is obviously a big part of the story. Okay, back to the maps. We are now at 1701. You can see that the Dutch are now gone, having been defeated by the English, and the English have now built settlements all along the Atlantic seaboard. New France has expanded into the Great Lakes, and the Spanish are still in Florida in this area here. If we move ahead to 1741, we can see that the French have now established themselves in Louisiana, which they named after their king, Louis XIV, and they're trading all along the Mississippi River. England is now Britain, and they've taken over Acadia from the French. And it's important to remember that several Native American groups still play an important role at this point, particularly the Iroquois in the north and the Cherokee in the south. Now, when we zoom ahead 40 years to 1781, we can see that a lot has changed. First of all, the French are gone, and that happened just before the Declaration of Independence. So let's actually go back to the previous map to explain. In a war known as the French and Indian War, Britain defeated France and became the sole power in the area. So not only did it control the 13 colonies, they also controlled the areas up here that were previously French. Just a decade after that happened, the 13 colonies revolted, declared independence, and fought against the British in the American Revolution. And the Americans won that war, so interestingly, the British were now basically confined to the area that was previously French. And that area became known as British North America. It was not Canada yet. A couple more things to point out. Vermont was not among the 13 colonies that signed the Declaration of Independence. They started out as their own republic, but then soon after joined the U.S. This area here was part of the original United States, but there were no actual states formed here yet. The area had originally been set aside by the British for the Native Americans, but eventually it would be settled by the Americans. You can see that Spain now...
Sorry?
Right, because fucking the Native Americans is a common pastime,
right?
Not one that only America and Canada enjoyed.
No, it's fair game for everyone apparently.
Yeah.
Controlled the former territory of Louisiana and are also starting to settle in California. And the only part of North America that has really not been claimed by any European country yet is this little corner up here, now Washington State and the province of British Columbia, which is where I happen to live. But it's important to remember that in 1781, although the Europeans claimed all this land, it was still mostly populated by Native Americans. In Canada, we use the term First Nations. Okay, let's look ahead to 1821.
Pause again a second.
By now, three important things have happened.
All this land, even the shit that says United States or British North America, all Mexico, doesn't matter. All this land, it was full of natives, indigenous people. That, so I mean, sometimes the way he talks, I know he's trying to be respectful, but he also sounds like he really cares about America or whatever. And
yeah, no, even the maps, like I mean, this, I guess it's showing us who quote unquote owns this now,
Yeah,
but
owns it.
it doesn't show us who's here.
Right, correct. But I'm saying is how he said it. Well, there's still some, native people. There's native people. The whole thing. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, there's still lots of indigenous people all throughout all the area.
All the areas. There's not. In fact, I don't think there's an area that doesn't have it. That would be more accurate. There isn't an area where it's supposedly owned by another state or a territory or whatever that is not full of the indigenous people. I mean,
Yep.
And first, the United States has purchased Louisiana from the French. It had been Spanish, but then it briefly went back to France before France sold it to the U.S. Also, Florida is now part of the U.S., and Mexico has declared its independence from Spain. So Spain is no longer on the map. But look how big Mexico is. Mexico originally included California and Texas and all this area in between.
All right, so that's the end of our first video.
Yep.
Back to the maps.
By the way, do you know
Moving
most
forward.
of this?
No, I know bits and pieces of it. Like I knew, just in general, I knew like that Mexico used to own Texas and California, and that and that there was French and Dutch and various other countries that all tried to claim land, but then the British kind of won most of that, and then the Declaration of Independence in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of know a general history of it, but.
To
we didn't learn nothing about
1861.
Canada.
What's that?
We didn't learn nothing about Canada. I had put a picture before about how America sees the world, and it's just America with ocean everywhere. There is no other anything.
Yeah. We used to joke.
I feel like that's how I got taught school. Like,
right.
There really is Europe, and then there's America, and then who supports us? Yay!
Yeah. We used to joke when I was growing up that Americans didn't really understand that there was other people outside of their country.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely accurate.
I mean, it's still even like a running joke. Like if you talk to people who travel down to the U.S., you go, "Oh yeah, what did they say? What do they think about Canada? Oh yeah, they all think we live in igloos and it's never-ending winter up here." And
right. That's what I'm saying. Is it's crazy that I didn't learn much, but also what I was taught. We don't realize how like encapsulated and bigoted it is. That's why to me it's so easy to say, of course the US is a racist nation.
Right.
If they weren't, it would be obvious, wouldn't it? That's why I think it's so crazy to argue with some people like their logic. Literally, if I told you someone was loving, but they never did anything that matched the definition of love, would you say that it was justified to call that person loving?
Exactly.
If you have a country that could easily get rid of racism, I mean, it's not like it should be a hard thing. Seriously, the fact that you can't even do protections and stuff, it's and constantly, of course, violate everything. But I'm just saying, it's a joke. Shut the fuck up. Quit talking about how great you are. You're not great. Greatness requires something to be good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You got to start at least at good, but you're not even starting there. So great.
Even a goal of good, because I don't even feel like the goal of good. That's like Biden.
Yeah.
I'm the best president who ever was for, or union for the people or something, or, or best union president. I can't remember how he said it, because I don't really give a shit when he talks, but literally, excuse me, aren't you the guy that, wasn't it like 2 months ago that you freaking removed the ability for the union for the
railroad workers,
the railroad to
pro union?
What I'm saying, but they're certainly better than Trump. I'm like, yeah, so is a lot of people. And I'm like, that's not supporting why anything that he could be good. You're just saying he could be worse.
That's right.
Yeah.
When the bar is on the floor,
Yeah.
it's easy to step over.
We come to one of the most important chapters in U.S. history, the Civil War. The Civil War was fought over the issue of slavery. The North no longer had slaves, but the South did. And
let me clarify something. I don't think it's accurate to say it this way. The South seceded was racist and about slavery. They later say it's about states' rights. The North just wanted to have peace and wanted to in a sense, not have them secede. Because there's a I don't remember. I'm not going to quote it exactly. But someone can go look it up. There's a thing by Abraham Lincoln that says something like, "If I could give emancipation to all black slaves and that would save the Union, I would do it. If I could only emancipate half and it would save the Union, I would do it. If I could emancipate none and it would save the Union, I would do it." So now later, so this is what it says. The reason I'm addressing this, because it's saying the reason it was fought. Well, yes, why they seceded and why Lincoln had to deal with this at all was fucking racism, was definitely slavery. But that was the South's reason for leaving.
Right.
The North's reason for fighting became later slavery, but only because it advanced the power of taking the war to a new level. Not because of some altruistic, like this, Lincoln was the greatest. Lincoln was a racist. Wrong if you think otherwise. He was a racist. He flat out said that if he could, he would send all the blacks back to Africa. He also said he did not think that a black person is the equivalent to a white person. So, I'm not going to keep going on. But I'm trying to make a comment that when people say this, it's wrong on both sides. They say it like it's a universal, like both sides fought over slavery. No, that's wrong. Or they try to say like that's what say a liberal will say. Oh, they both fought over slavery. Wrong. And then the Confederate, the bigots will go, oh, it was about states' rights. That's wrong too. You guys left literally. There's like 50 times in your little like 2 pages that slavery was mentioned. It absolutely was about slavery. And and I'm not going to go into it too much, but there's also, because I have a blog on it, there's also what do they call that? Their secession, whatever, statements. And I think it's 90% or something like that, very, very high, where they basically say this is about making a white ethno state. They don't even bullshit. They flat out just say, we want it to be white supremacy now and forever, basically.
Right.
So once again, not states' rights, unless states' rights is the right to have white supremacy. So, anyways, I wanted to address that. But I don't know what you're taught, because I know this is like not your country, that you're in. So,
well, we were, if I recall correctly, we were taught like you say, like the North was anti-slavery and the South was pro-slavery, and that's why they fought.
Right, which is not totally accurate, really.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was trying to say. What's more accurate is the North didn't want the South to stop being part of the United States in a sense.
Right.
The Union or whatever.
Yeah, like the framing of it is wrong, right?
Correct. Because the framing is right, but only on one side. Like I said, if you're just mentioning what the South did, then yes, it was absolutely because of slavery.
Right. Yeah.
But
the North wasn't concerned about the slavery so much as they were concerned about
the Union.
The Union.
Yeah, that was the thing. And like I said, if they could have kept bigotry and kept the Union, they would have been fine with that. So no thinking he was the greatest man, greatest president ever. Oh my God. You make me vomit in my mouth.
Right. Okay.
They wanted to keep it that way. So the South actually broke away from the North and declared themselves to be a new country called the Confederate States of America. And this led to a civil war in which over 500,000 Americans died fighting each other. And when you see depictions of the Civil War, you can know that the soldiers wearing blue are from the North, and they were called Union soldiers, and the soldiers wearing gray are from the South, and they were called Confederate soldiers. So this war...
That one always actually confused me. Like, I can never keep track of who's Confederate and who's Union on, like, when you see it on TV shows or whatever.
Right.
It's like, okay, so they're both, I mean, everybody's uniform kind of looks the same, but just different colors.
Well, yeah, well, it's gray and blue. It's just like kind of like they're having it. He's having it right there.
Yeah.
But another thing too is that the United States, before it ever fought, say, supposedly for slavery, they were already in Kansas, right, and Missouri fighting over slavery. There was already the war had already started. It's just that more people joined in a sense.
Right.
But that was an abolition. So, but that's wrong to say that's what caused the war. That probably made it more the Confederate States to realize that people are willing to fight over this. We better actually make a stand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in my opinion, I don't know exactly, but I'm just saying it's certain. It is another thing too. People don't know. It lasted after we said the war was over because these people were fucking fanatics, you know, wanting to keep slaves. And there was already, in a sense, states war, Kansas and Missouri fighting over slavery, especially because, see, Missouri was, in a sense, or other states were feeling that Kansas was stealing people or helping them steal or motivating them to in a sense, you know, have a, you know, an uprising or something. So they saw that as that kind of thing. But I'm just saying, so in a sense, that's why I was going back to that. Some people could say, oh, well, it's because Kansas is blue. That's why I was bringing this up. Someone could say, oh, well, yeah, the Union states, they were already started, and it was about that. Well, if you're going to just limit Kansas, okay, yeah. And the rest of the states didn't give a shit, but or if they did, there was no, you know, like a real aggressive power going on compared to that. But anyways, I'm just, so it is confusing. Well, also to me, like you said, it's confusing when you watch it. Yeah, because when you watch it, a lot of America seems to show that the South was this great thing that we all should have supported, and it failed. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's how some of the shows are. I'm like Dukes of Hazzard and all that. It's all about the flag and all that, you know, Confederate. You know, with the South to rise again.
Lots of very pro Confederate type of ideas float around in popular culture, even though like maybe they shouldn't.
No, we know they shouldn't. I'm not saying the Union was some great, you know, monolith, but the South was even worse. So it should be super easy to say the KKK is bad. I'm just saying. Yeah, that should not be like any task on any moral person.
Right. All right.
Lasted about 4 years, and the North won, which meant two things. First of all, slavery was abolished in the South as well as the North. And two, the United States was once again united. The breakaway states in the South rejoined the North. So you can see by 1901, the U.S. looks almost like it looks like today. The only exception is that Arizona and New Mexico and Oklahoma are still territories, not states. But that would soon change. Also, British North America is now Canada. So Canada is actually a younger country than the U.S. By 1941, we have 48 states on the continent. And in 1959, Alaska and Hawaii become states, making the current 50.
Okay.
When I was going to say, I lived in Hawaii before, like I told you. And when I lived there as a kid, I talked to other kids, you know.
Right.
And they said, you know, they hated the white people. I said, really? And they said, oh, yeah, you guys are terrible. What you did, stop took over a country. It's freaking now we live like in the slums, like beach bums, and you guys have these mansions and shit, and you think it's okay. Like, anyways, so
Fair.
I'm just saying, personal knowledge. I know that Hawaiians were not too happy about white people being there.
Yeah, not too pleased about being incorporated into America.
Yeah. Well, what's really crazy, the whole story of Hawaii, we could go into, of course, every state in the United States and realize how fucked up America was every time. Like you said, which is just, to me, just pure, excellence that, always assume that they're going to do the wrong thing. Don't assume that. So if I'm going to tell you a story about a state being born, something wrong happened.
Yeah,
you should look for it because it's there. So, anyways, Hawaii, just like the Philippines too, we suppose, we're going to go protect you,
mm-hmm.
And then we kick the other people out, and they're like, yeah, but we're staying. So, I mean, and then just like in Hawaii, what happened too is a whole bunch of white business owners were there, and their stuff was at threat. We had to take over. How else are we going to protect the capitalists? Come on, Cory,
gotta protect the capitalist rights to own property and
own property and land that these other people never gave you.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, but America's great. I remember this one guy got so pissed. I had blocked him eventually, but back when I was being an activist too, I would talk a lot longer to people. But this one guy, he was so mad that I was, putting down, America and, not being proud and all this shit. And I just started going off on him. And, but people understand too. It's not that I want you to hate America because I'm just some, leftist that hates America. I literally am totally open to be kind to anybody. But when people are fucking terrific bigots, why in the fuck should I feel anything? That's like I told you. I am pretty lenient of who I try to allow as, acquaintances, friends, or link with me on Twitter or, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's because I want to do activism. But even then, there's a point. Like I told you, I'm pretty. But man, when you go off the deep end in the right, and some people in the left that say they want to kill people and shit.
Yeah.
These are not people that are fighting for anything close to what I want to be associated with.
Yeah. No, I agree. So we still got 3 more videos here. So.
Yep.
This continent has some of the most dramatic landscapes on the planet, from the ocean shorelines to the alpine mountains and the sandy deserts. And also in this landmass from coast to coast and everywhere in between, there lived hundreds, if not thousands of different nations, tribes of people whose land this was. This was their home. But then others showed up to these shorelines in their boats. And that is when everything changed. In the spring of 1803, 2 American politicians visiting Paris closed the sweetest real estate deal they had ever seen. With the simple stroke of a pen, their country doubled in size, all for just $15 million. But in this deal, which was called the Louisiana Purchase, the US didn't actually buy this land from France. France didn't actually own the land. What the United States was buying was the imperial rights to this huge swath of North America. This basically meant that France would stay out of the way and let the budding new empire, the United States, colonize it without interfering. If the United States really wanted ownership over this land, they would need to get it from the people who were here first, which at the time was lots of different native tribes. These are the people who had been here for thousands of years, way before Europeans had the idea of leaving their continent. And this land that the US just bought was theirs. Oh, and this isn't just me, like some modern enlightened person looking back and judging the United States at this time. The US knew that this wasn't their land and that they were going to have to buy it from the people living there. And their big plan was to do things differently, not like the old imperial powers that they had just broken away from. In fact, George Washington was, quote, determined that the US government's administration of Indian affairs shall be directed entirely by the great principles of justice and humanity. Go USA, let's do this.
That didn't work out.
Right. It didn't even come close. And in fact, the truth is, when you look at paper, they didn't even try to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Come on. Justice and integrity or whatever it was.
You can say it if you want, but come on.
But this goes back to what I'm saying, that like I don't think everything in the the Constitution of the United States is somehow glorified, or any of the documents, whatever. But I was just saying that the overarching statement of us, for the people, by the people, with the people, whatever.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound bad. But just like this doesn't sound bad. Justice.
Yeah.
Fucking when have you done justice to the indigenous people of America? What the fuck? Even like did you hear some of the Seminoles have wealth now, and it's because America paid them a couple million for Florida. A couple million. Like I think it was 58 million to spread among all of them, but for Florida. Like the whole fucking state. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Jesus, eh?
Yeah. I know. Sounds fair, right? What are you paying them from, what, like 18 something?
Yeah, that's right.
Come on. That should be 58 billion. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Million. Like what?
What a joke.
Anyway, then the government tried to give money. I can't remember how much. It was more in the billions, but it was like I don't know. So I'm just gonna guess. So people know. Don't quote this because it's billions, but I can't remember. 28 or 12 or something. I can't remember.
Okay,
but it's several billions, right? They said no. They said we'll give you for the Black Hills because we did take them. Yeah, I told you they fucking stole them outright. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they say they're going to pay them now, right? They didn't want it. They said, give us back the land.
Yeah.
So anyways, but I was very shocked. That almost sounds like the U.S. is trying to do something right for once. I thought, man, what?
Yeah, no kidding.
Come on now. Corey probably with Damien, look further into that. There has to be some bullshit.
It sounds sketchy to me. I'm not.
Well, what I meant is, if you go back to the general rule that it always assume that America or any state's going to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So if it looks like they're doing the right thing, there's
what's actually hiding there? Yeah, that's right. What's behind the surface?
Yeah, they're not doing this what George Washington said. Justice and integrity, or whatever it said. Humanity.
Yeah. Humanity. Yeah. No.
In the right way. So instead of conquest, they would negotiate and sign formal treaties with these native nations. Then they would pay them for their land, fair and square. After all, this was a country whose founding document highlights justice, tranquility, welfare, and liberty. In our series, How the U.S. Stole, we get to see how the U.S. grew from a group of English settlers to a global superpower. But none of those stories would exist without this one, the origin story, the first thing that the U.S. ever stole. So Europeans are pouring into this newly formed country, the United States. And the government is making deals and signing treaties with the tribes, allowing these newcomer immigrants to settle on their land. At first, this is a fairly peaceful transactional process. The US would offer food, farming equipment, cash, the services of a blacksmith, all in exchange for ownership over this land. But unsurprisingly, a lot of these tribes had no interest in moving out of their ancestral lands in exchange for, like, farming equipment. And this is where all of George Washington's ideals of justice and humanity really start to dissolve. The US was becoming a more powerful nation. They needed more land for their booming population. So the impatient settlers and their government started playing dirty.
The westward movement was like a great tidal
Pause
wave.
for 1 second. I don't agree with one statement you said. They didn't actually need land. There was not overpopulation of the place of New York or Pennsylvania. If you've been there today, see, there's the news flash. I've been to every single one of these states.
Right.
I have driven at least 1 mile of interstate on every single state in the United States. Besides Alaska, I haven't been there. So I've been to Hawaii, and I've been on a car. So I've been on their little like 5 or 10 mile highway.
Right.
But anyways, my point is, so none. I've been to every single state. You know the craziest thing? I've been to New York City several times, right? So New York City, it's like you're driving through Canada, and also you drop into like this thing, and there's just fucking a fuck ton of people
Right.
out of nowhere. It's like it's like there's like a big gorge, and everybody is just falling into and shit, and they only want to stay in the gorge. I mean, just fuck ton. But my point is, 5 miles, 10 miles outside of New York City, it looks like Canada.
Right, like it's wide open.
It literally looks like there's practically no people. So I'm trying to, just joking. But what I meant is not like, say, Toronto, right? I mean, it's like, say, where you live, or Regina, or somewhere even more.
Well, I mean, all of Canada just passed 40 million people as a population.
There's
New York
20
City
million in or more probably now, but
yeah,
it's probably more, because when I was truck driving a long time ago, it was 20 something million, whatever. 22 million were in just the island of New York.
Yeah,
not like 5 boroughs. That's it. Not like the rest of the whole state or whatever. That's what I was trying to say. It's like nobody, and then it's like unbelievable amount of people. Here's the point too. Oh, so 20 million people could live there in that small area.
Right.
Meaning, once again, goes back to the story that you have to have all this land. No, you don't. So I'm just saying that he said that. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
No one lives in New York now. It's not full. It's not like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like everywhere in between the major city, it looks like, say, rural Canada. I mean, it's like nothing. Yeah. So to think that state's even not full today, it's like, it's ludicrous. You had room.
Yeah, you had room.
Fucking lie.
You
I don't even use that. What he said. That's no.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
That's an excuse. I understand it made sense to you, but it's still bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm calling it out. Yeah. Fuck you. Yeah. No.
You start to see what happens when these tribes say no to the newly powerful United States. In one instance, one group of tribes up near the Great Lakes didn't want to sell their land. They told the United States that this river would be the border and to not cross it, to stay off their land. The US said no, and they took them to war and lost twice. But on the third time, they won the battle and forced the tribes to sign a treaty giving away all of this land, basically all of present-day Ohio. Something very similar happened down here when the Seminole tribes refused to leave their land. The US military came in, another war, killing thousands, forcing the tribes to sign a treaty and pushing them into the swampy interior of the state, where they had no access to their farmland or the ocean. Down here in what was becoming Alabama, the Muskogee Nation refused to sign a relocation treaty, but not wanting to go to war, agreed to sell a portion of their land in return for a guarantee that they could keep the rest. And the United States agreed, and they actually did. And the Muskogee kept their ancestral lands forever. Womp womp, no, that didn't happen. 4 years later, a bunch of white settlers moved in, boxing the Muskogee out of their ancestral land. As tensions grew because of this violated agreement, the US military was called in to force the Muskogee out of their lands. No treaty was ever signed. I mean, the shenanigans ranged the whole gamut here. They would get tribal leaders drunk to trick them into signing this paper that gave them all the land. They would appoint random people to be the tribal leaders and then tell them to sign away the land for the whole tribe. In another conflict, the Sioux and Arapaho nations defeated the US military over and over until the US finally signed a peace treaty acknowledging their land. And they were safe. Until gold was discovered 8 years later, and the US broke their treaty, redrew the boundaries, built roads on their land, and before you know it, you've got a bunch of white guys with gold pans harvesting this land. Treaties and justice be damned.
Pause for 1 second. I don't know if you knew, but what I did not know, I told you before, I thought wrongly, because I always went back to not realizing the Cory's thing is Damien. When it comes to doing the right thing, just assume they're not going to do the right thing. So I thought reservations were that the Indian run, like they owned the fucking land, like it was a sovereign nation, like they say, sovereign nation. Yeah, I thought the land was not U.S. territory. You get my point? Sovereign.
Right. Supposed to be.
Not
right?
the fuck connected to you, sovereign.
Yeah. Yeah, as in the people who live there get to rule over themselves. Sovereign.
Sovereign. Actual sovereign.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but no, of course not.
Of course not. Right? Which is, anyways. So it just, I feel like that's not explained well enough or something, because I actually was under that delusion. That's why I was surprised, and now I understand. I was totally surprised and angry and shocked when I was in California living there before I moved to Oregon. That when I was like 20 or something, I think that's the age. But California said that they were going to start. They had a law they were going to vote on to basically start charging a higher tax the Indian gaming. I'm like, well, I'm against that totally. How have we been voting on that? We're going to vote if they have rights or not?
Yeah.
Are you for real? We're going to vote if we can go to a sovereign nation and go, you know what? I'm going to tax you. I know I say I shouldn't tax you, and there was a treaty against that, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway.
But I really want that money that you have.
Yeah, that money, though. You're doing so well. And they said the bullshit, too, because I heard someone talking about it. They said something about that it was Americans spending the money. It's not like it was natives gambling on the native reservation. Fuck you. That's a sovereign nation. What someone does on there, you should go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's right. You don't go like you can't, if you go to say France and you spend money in France, right. The US doesn't tax France based on the money you spent there.
See, now you're getting it. Yeah.
that's what sovereign nation means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But imagine that they were allowing us to vote on it. I was like, this is disgusting.
Yeah,
we shouldn't even have the right to vote. What are you kidding me?
Yeah. How does that even make sense?
It doesn't. That's why I was just saying that sometimes. So even when America's or Canada talk about, reservations, and we have, well, at least they have one place they're safe, and they may even feel that way, sort of. But it's not really safe. And then don't ever forget that. And when America or Canada can do the right thing, they likely will not.
Yeah.
Just assume that they don't.
Yeah, that's right. That's how so many of the reserves or reservations in the U.S. end up on land that isn't actually farmable, isn't actually usable in any way, and they're left with the only thing they're left with is gambling,
right?
Building casinos, and then they want to tax that and take that away.
Because how dare you make money?
Yeah, that's right.
How dare you make that much money?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
yeah, it's fucked.
Eventually, other tribes caught on to what was going to happen, realizing that refusing the US government would mean violence. So they would sign the paper, take the money, and leave. Over the course of almost 100 years, the United States signed 368 treaties with tribal nations, who were driven out one way or another to make way for white settlers, who established control over this land that their government had stolen for them. And yes, you have all the paperwork, all the spreadsheets that they were making, all the treaties, a nice paper trail. But this was all a facade of justice, a thinly veiled campaign for imperial conquest.
All right. That's our third video.
And by the way, that anyone who wants to, that's a good video. I have it in the blog. You should go watch it, the whole thing, and the rest of the series.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Video number,
Americans, the people who
4.
lived on the land where the United States of America now exists, before Europeans arrived and began colonizing it. In this map, made in 1991 but referred to pre-colonization times, we can see the continental United States and the main language and cultural groups of the natives that inhabited those lands, from the Iroquois to the Cherokee, the Comanche, the Shoshone, or the Karankawa, among many others. As the Europeans arrived in the East Coast and began settling inwards, natives began losing their lands more and more, and this tendency of land loss continued after European nations were no longer in control and the United States were created, gaining their own independence. The thing is, this land loss by the natives should not have happened in the dimension that it did, and I don't even mean just morally, I mean legally. After American independence from 1778 to 1871, the United States government entered into more than 300 treaties with the Native American tribes. Since then, all of these treaties have been partially or entirely broken by the US government, a fight that the natives have taken to courts and even to the United Nations, and sometimes have won. These treaties mostly had to do with one thing: land. As the US became independent, they wanted to expand further west, following the concept of manifest destiny, and taking advantage of the lands they got off the British and the French. They believed they had the right to settle North America from one coast to the other. The problem is, people already live there, both in the unclaimed territory, but even in the one granted to them by the British upon independence and by the French with the Louisiana Purchase. And so, the United States saw natives as an obstacle, which they removed through war or sometimes diplomacy. The issue is that even through diplomacy, they broke their word, and the deals which they made with the natives regarding the ownership of land or the benefits of giving it up were not kept. According to Matthew Fletcher, director of Indigenous law, the rule of thumb is every treaty has been broken.
Yeah. Every treaty has been broken.
Every treaty has been broken. Right. So just imagine the gall it takes to stand up there and say, I am proud to be an American because of 200 years of freedom.
Right.
Just go be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. It's pretty ignorant.
Government usually obtained these treaties coercively, meaning they threatened violence, war, starvation. Tribes agreed to give up their land and many times relocate. Relocations that in many cases led to the perishing of thousands of natives on the way, something that became known as the Trail of Tears. But they did so with the guarantee that at least part of their land would remain theirs, and in a lot of cases that they would be able to continue to hunt, fish, and gather wild food on the territory they were giving up. Many treaties also included cash payments, mineral rights, and promises of healthcare and education, the vast majority of which were never fulfilled. But the thing is, they should have been. According to the United States' own constitution, treaties to which the United States is a party also have the force of federal legislation, forming part of what the Constitution calls the supreme law of the land. In fact, in July of 2020, the US Supreme Court issued a decision that altered the map of the state of Oklahoma. The eastern half of the state is now, for legal purposes, Indian country. The biggest percentage of Native Americans countrywide live in Oklahoma, 12.9%, followed by New Mexico with 10.7% and South Dakota with 10.1%. In this map, we can see those percentages across states. And when it comes to land, Native American nations are now mostly reduced to their reservations. This map shows us the Indian lands of federally recognized tribes. There are more than 5.2 million American Indian and Alaska Native people who live in America and 573 federally recognized Native nations across the country. We obviously can't go one by one and look at all of the over 300 treaties, so what we're going to do in this video, in no particular order, is take a look at a few select treaties that properly illustrate how most of them were made and what they consisted of, why and how they were broken and not fulfilled, and what the territory of the United States of America would look like today if they had in fact been upheld, understanding why they can in fact still be forced to fulfill them today. This map from the Library of Congress shows shows us Indian land judicially established. So essentially lands in which an American Indian tribe proved their original tribal land occupancy. And as we can see, it's a lot, spread around the land and divided into many individual nations. Should early treaties have been followed, much of this land would have remained under native control. Now, we can argue that many of the land would, even with the upkeep of most treaties, eventually be under US control, as many treaties actually gave away land from the natives to the US. But still, the amount of control and influence that Native Americans would have today would be much higher, and their numbers among the US population would likely have been higher too. When we compare it to that first map, it used to be incredibly more than it is now, and still falls immensely short of what it was supposed to be according to the treaties. So now let's take a look at a few of those treaties to understand why this reality never took place. Each treaty has its own specific conditions and reasons for its failure, but together they paint a general idea of why this happened. Treaties between the US government and Native Americans have to be divided into two time periods. From 1774 until 1832, they consisted of treaties between different nations. In the same way the US negotiated its independence with the British, they were negotiated, mutually signed, approved by Congress, and non-native citizens needed some type of passport to cross over into native lands. Effectively, it was as if there were several countries and nations into what is now the continental United States. But from 1832 to 1871, this changed, and American native tribes stopped being considered countries, now being seen as domestic dependent tribes, included within the United States. And in 1871, treaties altogether came to an end, as the US House of Representatives stopped recognizing native tribes as individual nations. But then again, if they were just not going to fulfill the treaties, why bother making them? There were informal agreements before this, but the first treaty officially signed was the Treaty of Fort Pitt in 1778 between the US government and the Lenape tribe from Delaware. The treaty was essentially an alliance that gave the United States permission to travel through the Delaware land, granting US soldiers, supplies, and even native reinforcements. The treaty also recognized the Delaware tribe as a sovereign nation, guaranteed their territorial rights, and even encouraged the other Ohio Country Indian tribes to form a state headed by the Delawares with representation in the Continental Congress. Essentially, they would have been the 14th state within the new independent nation. Soon after the treaty collapsed due to insatisfaction by the natives, who in this event didn't fully keep their end of the bargain either, they instead joined the British in fighting against the US. The reasons for the insatisfaction were apparently two. One, some argued the natives didn't fully understand what they were agreeing to due to poor or ill-intentioned translators. The US demanded a full military alliance, the natives did not want one. And two, it seems these natives were discouraged by observing that the US were not fulfilling their commitments with other tribes, getting a feeling that they were only interested in their land. Next came the Treaty of Hopewell with the Cherokee and Choctaw in 1785, which ended with the phrase, "The hatchet shall be forever buried, and peace given by the United States of America." As we know, this was not the case. The Calico Treaty in 1794 ceded 1 million acres of land and sovereignty to the Six Nations to govern themselves, but this was eventually overlooked. The Treaty of Greenville in 1795 saw the Shawnee and Delaware tribes cede large parts of Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. In return, the US would stop expanding into the remainder of their land. But the treaty was quickly voided, as the US ignored it and continued expanding. Andrew Jackson, first as a federal commissioner and then as president, led a big effort in displacing Native Americans and capturing their land. The Indian Removal Act from 1830 allowed the US government to grant land west of the Mississippi River to Native tribes, who agreed to give up their homelands. But this voluntary aspect was ignored, and through threats of withholding payment and military action, over 25 million acres of land were acquired, and many natives perished on their way to the new lands they were promised, and they didn't even eventually get to keep them in the long term. In other cases, especially in California, treaties were signed by US representatives in the area but then failed to be ratified by Congress, and so the natives would leave their lands expecting compensation as promised, but it would never come. In the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868, the US government recognized the Black Hills of Dakota as the Great Sioux Reservation, the exclusive territory of the Sioux people. But after gold was discovered in the region, miners and settlers began moving there, and native sovereignty was ignored. In 1980, the Supreme Court ruled that the Black Hills were in fact illegally confiscated and awarded the Sioux more than $100 million in reparations. reparations. But Sioux leaders rejected the payment, saying that the land had never been for sale. Essentially, the United States wanted to expand west, but these western lands were inhabited by natives, so they either kicked them out through war or moved them out through these treaties. The treaties were either A, unclear, so the natives didn't really know what they were agreeing to, or B, full of empty promises that the US government ended up not fulfilling. Because of this, we are today left with a very unjust situation where native people have been for centuries striped off their land and or insufficiently compensated when they actually agreed to leave. The issue is that, despite the US government choosing to ignore the treaty's existence and terms, they still exist, and many of them are signed and ratified, therefore holding legal value up to today. Unless they are revoked by Congress, a court that reviews the documents may decide that many of them should in fact be in effect, and demand that compensation is provided if not fully applied the terms written at the time. And there's an interesting additional perspective regarding the keeping of these treaties: environmental protection. A lot of modern native tribes have filed complaints in court against corporations or even the government itself when polluting industries are said to be placed there. Many times, tribal members have been arrested seeking to exercise their hunting and fishing rights. Governments and private interests have developed on hunting grounds, blocked and polluted waterways, and destroyed vast regions of natural resources. If native treaty rights had been honored, not only would the political but also the natural landscape of the US look very different today. In recent years, some courts have in fact decided it's time to start honoring the treaty obligations. And not only would this bring fairness and justice to the native tribes, but also a pathway to the protection of the environment based on the legal principle that the land is of native property and therefore cannot be exploited and polluted without their permission. An American historian, Mark Hirsch, stated recently, "The fact that you have treaties between the United States and tribes means that those tribes are actually viewed as nations that are sovereign, like any foreign nation." Then adding, "Treaties, according to the Constitution, are the highest law of the land, and many are still in effect. They are just ignored and unfulfilled by the US government." For a long time, the US got away with breaking its word and ignoring these legal treaties simply because the natives were not strong enough to both make their voice heard or present a threat to the state, something they would have never dared to do against Britain, France, or some other strong nation with whom they also established various treaties. But in modern times, with this issue being out in the open,
this issue has never been just limited to what Native Americans need to say that they're loud enough that we're being treated unethically. Ethical people anywhere should be against unethical stuff and treatment of people. So all of America is fucking guilty or is responsible for either saying nothing or being quiet or even fighting against it and acting like it didn't happen or isn't happening. Or doesn't need to, address land back in a real way, not some bullshit way.
Yep. The idea that the indigenous people had to be strong enough to fight back is, an indictment of the United States in and of itself.
Good point. Because if an ethical person doesn't do harm, I don't do harm because I never have thoughts of doing harm. I don't do harm because it's unethical.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Simple. Done. It's not it's like something that should be a brain teaser.
Yeah.
And recognized by many as an injustice, the US government might finally be forced to fulfill the terms of their own treaties, and the result of that could be a benefit to all and would at least be the fair thing to do.
Oh, really?
Okay. And that's
as
the
if
end
that
of that
even
video.
needs to be said. Oh, that would be fair thing to do.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm glad he said it, but it's just
Yeah. It's fucked that it has to be said.
Yeah, I guess that's even the better way of saying it. It's how sad that we have to be told the basic ethical things.
Yeah. Bizarre. So we've got quite a few pages of notes here to go through.
Yep.
So first thing is we've got a map here. It's shows unceded territory, Indian reservations, and Indian homeland from 1776 to the present, and so it kind of divides that up.
Right, and people will get to see that because we'll show that.
So in North America, colonial powers entered into numerous treaties with native peoples to acquire land in exchange for goods and currency. In this way, huge portions of North America, via convoluted chains of title, came to be claimed by what are now Canada and the United States. For much of the land in these two states, the government can point to a particular legal document which enacted the transfer of ownership. But for large expanses of the land, Canada and the US do not possess even the most tenuous legal claim. This land is considered unceded. In the United States, the most obvious tract of unceded territory is the land around the original 13 British colonies on the eastern seaboard. Another notable piece is eastern Texas, which was seized by force of arms by the Republic of Texas and the United States in the 19th century. And then we have a little picture. It says, if native treaties were honored, and it shows what would be native land in green,
Which
and what would be the United States in yellow.
United States, or at least half of it.
Yeah. Like, if these treaties were honored, there would be very little that is the United States comparatively.
Right? And
Yeah.
people don't get that. And so they act, you get my point is, I feel like when people say land back, some of the liberals will go, well, they don't actually mean that. Or when we say, defund the police, well, they don't really mean that, Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
How about put that same amount of money into, I don't know, making sure there's after-school programs, making sure that people have job security, making sure that there's housing, making sure that there's food. I don't know, making sure that the schools are even the same. I think it's disgusting as fuck that in America you can be like I remember when I went to high school, there was 3 high schools in my town, okay? None of them were equal, right?
Right.
Which is really fucked. One I was at was called University, and it had more like I would say the lower class. Let's just say that.
Okay.
More of that. Still was a lot of high class, but there's more of the lower class. Then there was another one that was more like almost like preppy kids. And there was one where it produced a lot of kids for sports and stuff, but still rich. Right?
Okay.
And they even had like an Olympic size, pool and all this stuff, and Olympic size diving boards. And
so that was a private school.
No, it was just a regular school.
Really?
This is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to make this point is that it's not equal. Like even in the same town, and it's not equal that these schools, and how does anyone like ethically go, yeah, that makes sense. You should definitely not have.
It should be fine. Yeah.
Right.
It's fine that school has an Olympic sized pool and that school is looking for books or whatever.
That's exactly in the same city. Not like, anyways. So that really struck me because I didn't even know that. Because of course, you're insulated, you go to your school, your thing. But then when I started doing wrestling, I started going to other schools and seeing some were worse than mine. And I thought mine was bad or whatever. And some were way better. Some were so much better, as like you said, is this a private school?
Right.
Like, oh no, it's just all the houses are really rich. So all the schools like the most awesome.
Right, because school funding is tied to private property tax.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is evil.
Yeah.
Which is evil. I don't care if it's tacked to that, as long as it's spread around evenly.
Exactly.
And they go, oh no, and I go, oh well, fuck you then, because I how is that equal protection? How is that? No. Their mentality of what justice and stuff, and then America or freedom is really like ridiculous. Same with Canada, but I mean, like all states really, but including the ones that people like that are on the left that are socialists. Those things have fucked up shit too. States just fucking suck.
States are bad.
Anyway.
Yep. Okay. So the European colonization of North America. Try and get my microphone a little bit better here. The European colonization of North America expanded through Spanish colonists, establishing themselves in present-day Florida in the 1500s, and English colonists doing so farther up the East Coast in the 1600s. North America's indigenous peoples preserved their cultures and dignity through this period, despite facing violent dispossession by the colonists. Enslaved Africans did as well, amid the horrors of their forced transportation to North America and inhumane treatment by their enslavers. During European colonization of North America, several empires from Europe, primarily Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, Russia, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Sweden, began to explore and claim the land, natural resources, and human capital of the Americas, resulting in the displacement, disestablishment, enslavement, and in many cases, genocide of the indigenous peoples and the establishment of several settler colonial states. The rapid rate at which Europe grew in wealth and power was unforeseeable in the early 15th century because it had been preoccupied with internal wars, and it was slowly recovering from the loss of population caused by the Black Death. The Ottoman Empire's domination of trade routes into Asia prompted Western European monarchs to search for alternatives, resulting in the voyages of Christopher Columbus and the accidental rediscovery of the New World. Beginning with the first wave of European colonization, the religious discrimination, persecution, and violence towards the indigenous peoples' native religions was systematically perpetrated by the European Christian colonists and settlers from the 15th and 16th centuries onwards. During the Age of Discovery and the following centuries, the Spanish and Portuguese colonial empires were the most active in attempting to convert the indigenous peoples of the Americas to the Christian religion. Pope Alexander VI issued the Inter Caetera bull in May 1493 that confirmed the lands claimed by the Kingdom of Spain and mandated in exchange that the indigenous peoples be converted to Catholic Christianity. During Columbus's second voyage, Benedictine friars accompanied him along with 12 other priests with what was called the spiritual conquest. Several mendicant orders were involved in the early campaign to convert the indigenous peoples. In the densely populated regions, friars mobilized indigenous communities to build churches, making the religious change visible. These churches and chapels were often in the same places as old temples, often using the same stones. Native peoples exhibited a range of responses from outright hostility to active embrace of the new religion. As slavery was prohibited between Christians...
Pause 1 second. Oh. So I think this goes a little bit towards like what we've talked about before. Like, so just think, why would they accept some of this stuff? Well, I think that it you have to understand that it's not all, but some of the religious beliefs, in a sense, were still similar in some of the connections to the ones, say, over in Eurasia.
Right.
Okay. And then though Eurasia's religious thinking, whatever, also affected the Middle East and back and forth, because back, it wasn't just one way, both ways. So,
right.
But, in a little bit, some of the people from North America did go back to 5,000 years ago, went back to Asia. So I'm sure that also brought in maybe new ideas too, even to America. I'm saying, so once again, it was kind of both ways. That goes back to what I told you also before, is that people have this thinking that everybody's isolated and nobody is interacting. And it's just... Not it. That's more of it feels like that than it's an actuality.
Right.
There's a lot more, and there's so much more interaction than you would imagine, and even the oldest stuff. It's like crazy, but people have moved around more. We're the crazy ones, like being so sedentary.
Right. Yeah.
That's a lot more, especially they would go, and then you had like a tornado came and tore everything down, and you rebuilt.
And you just stayed there.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're like, we had floods and
the water overtook the entire region, but
why did you keep putting houses where it flooded?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean,
because we're obsessed with the ownership of land. That's why.
There you go. So, yeah. About the religion stuff. So, like I said, some of the religions and connections are the same. One of the ways you can see that, especially deity-wise, is the thought of like the Great Spirit. In a sense, if you think about that, it's a kind of monotheism similar to the Christian religions. There's only one, the creator, right? Because even some Native people call it just the creator. They don't call it any gender, but just sort of the behavior that was done, which is creation.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, so in a sense, someone who's shamanistic and has a whole bunch of, like the pagans in a sense, a whole bunch of different concepts is not going to take a monotheism very well.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're basically just lost your whole thing is. But if your thing is a loose understanding of a creator, and they say, well, that creator is Jesus. I'm just saying, you get my point. I'm just making a comment. I'm not trying to convert nobody, please.
Right.
Foolishness. I'm just making a comment how it can be sold or how you can think of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I'm saying. So because I'm trying to make a point is that when they make it say like, well, they chose to. Well, if you came and you said, hey, in a sense, we all believe in just there's one God. Oh yeah.
We call this God this.
Right.
Yeah.
And since we're the power now and stuff, and we're going to give you these things, just say that your great spirit is this.
Just go along with us.
Yeah. But I'm just making a comment that I can see religious wise. I'm saying it's easier. Yeah. Like in a sense, some religious people, right? They'll go, I can't be friends with you, Damien. You're an atheist. This one guy wouldn't even follow me on Mastodon because of me. Oh, because I said anti-religionist. That's what it was. Anyways, my point is, yet you probably are no problem with all kinds of other religions that think you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that you are actually going to hell to be tortured. I mean, literally, right?
Yep. That's right. Yep.
You're okay, though, still being friends with them, but you don't like my thing where I say I'm an anti-religionist, and I explain what I mean is that to me, I'm against religion. That's like when someone would say, are you against someone telling, lies? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of against lies.
Damn, really?
Right?
Yep.
But the point is, I'm just not, sometimes there can be nuance, but like sometimes you might have to, because it depends on who you're lying to.
And the situation, yeah.
Right. But my point is, in general, the problem is lies, right?
Yeah.
Like who does it is more like, just a random thing. But the lies itself is pretty much always not you consider it as generally not a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, so you're addressing that. To me, it's the same thing. You get to address the issue, and it can be confused, with other stuff. Like, so.
Yep.
But go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, I've experienced actually in my life, like I've encountered multiple Indigenous people who are Christians, and will denigrate the religious practices of Indigenous peoples of the past, or even people who still practice or believe in those like I was working in the forests in Winnipeg or in Manitoba for a few weeks there, like, I don't know, a decade ago or what have you. And there was some Indigenous men there that we were working with. And we got on the subject of religion. And I was like, well, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of this stuff. And they're like, well, at least you don't believe in that crazy stuff that other natives believe. And I was like, what? How's that any more crazy than Christianity? So we kind of got into a discussion about that.
But so your situation was a little bit different. I had a person that I know has religious people that are friends that are against their religion, in a sense, another religion.
Yeah.
But yet they won't have
right, but they won't have an atheist. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, he said, oh, I would have if you were just an atheist, but you're an anti-religionist.
Oh, yeah.
Well, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, they think I don't know what they think of that word means.
Yeah.
I am against the propagation of lies, like we were talking about lies, right? I mean,
yeah.
Religion. If people use it as culture, like someone said, you're trying to take away Native American culture by taking away the religion. I said no. If they use it as culture, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
If you tell me that I have to believe that it's true and that I have to make, laws because of it,
Right.
I don't care what the religion is.
Yeah.
I don't care if it was atheism saying that.
Then you're crossing a line. Yeah.
You should make, laws that are ethical. I mean, just.
Yeah.
Humane. I don't know. That shouldn't. I mean, that's like people like say. Sometimes they'll say people are acting lawless or whatever. And to me, what do you mean by that? Because if you mean following bigoted laws, I have no problem breaking those.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I would find like people who act lawless often are being, the most kind and sharing their resources. Because a lot of that stuff's illegal too, right?
Well, but also even let's just say that it's laws broken that anyone could say is bad, like say shooting someone or whatever.
Sure.
But why? What are the sociological pressures? What are this?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, act like there's no. You walk through and everything is. That reminds me of when they said the court now is they trying to be colorblind. Literally, that's been the problem because the only color was white and you were blind to everything else.
Yeah.
Like saying that now you're going to make things colorblind where we don't ever acknowledge that there's other colors. That literally has been the problem.
Yeah, that's right. Like Black people, Indigenous people, and people from Mexico or Spanish descent in the United States often have a less opportunity because of the discrimination they face.
Absolutely.
And ignoring that is perpetuating injustice.
Exactly. But this goes back to, like I said, I didn't know I had to acknowledge or accept the term of woke until I heard all these anti-woke shit start talking.
Yeah.
Because I heard people say woke, I'm like, yeah. Because to me, the term seems like I would be arrogant to say that I have arrived and I see.
Right.
I understand it means something different, but just saying my thought. So, and I felt, I know that I need to always work on being better. And especially in areas where it comes to sensitivity of other cultures and other people and other even, people's feelings. Because just seeing the world only through limited how I see it, or accepting that only my type of thinking or my type of way and I know this is an error. So
right.
Even if I feel the need to do that, I go, oh, wrong.
But that's not correct. So I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I've said before, the first person that someone needs to, in a sense, judge is oneself. You need to be challenging yourself. Because I've seen a lot of people that are super good at challenging all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And I feel like an ethical person would be just as hard on themselves. That's why I told you before. I've changed and done things, and nobody was asking me to. No one expected me to. No one even knew that someone like me would do something like that. That's not why I did it. It's right, and I realize it's right, and I need to do what's right. So,
I think about like my journey into like educating myself about social justice, and like how easily, like with all the confirmation bias and all the support that you get from propping up the status quo and arguing against anything changing, like it would have been so easy to stay in that lane, right? Like it really would have been super easy to just be like, yeah, like white people are better or whatever, like, and you would have got money. You would have got so much support from just being that way and being like, oh, I've read all these books on social justice. They're all nonsense, but that's not the truth. So,
but see, you could even do it neutral. You did it in a sense, axiologically. You added negative value, but you could even have done it less. And you could have just said that. And they were telling me this. We'll talk about it more in the video about atheism. But I told you, people would tell me, Damien, you should be, you'd have more following. Take out the red beard. Make sure you look like a clown. Don't wear so much black, or don't do this. Don't paint your nails. Just let yourself blend in, and don't talk about social justice, and don't post pictures of flowers and cats. This one guy said he was going to block me because I posted pictures of my cats, but also other cats, because I think it's cool. And I just told him, go for it. Like,
that's bizarre.
like, he's like, you should just, post and talk about atheism. And I was like, don't tell me what the fuck to do. Like, what the shit? You should be glad I even talk about it at all.
I'm amazed that people, they're so myopic in the way that they view an individual. Like, I'm a full person. I don't just do this one thing.
Right.
Like, so of course I'm going to post all of it. Like, I'm a full person. I'm a whole human being with many aspects.
But so I could have been more famous. My point is, if I listened to all these things that they told me to do, especially if I would just kept quiet about being a leftist, and that would have helped a lot, because then all the liberals would have felt, oh, I see, this is a liberal and Democrat, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
My point is, so they would have felt that I was similar to them or whatever. But like I wasn't, and I would ask questions. Just like, to me, it's all really about money and about sponsorship. I know you know about the conventions and stuff too.
Yeah.
But that also made me more realize, oh, I need even more address that I'm a socialist.
Right.
Because they're making it all about money. So I printed cards, and it says I support socialism, right on the thing. And I
yeah.
Didn't just say that. I said all the things I support. But my point is, they also thought that was too much. Look at all the stuff you say. Anarchism is so. But people just take that off. And I wasn't gonna do it. So
yeah. Like, I mean, I guess we're getting a little far afield, but I was thinking about like when I organized that conference, that atheist conference here, like there was like we got a couple women to speak, and there was people who like actually had to ask us the question, well, why would you have women speak? And you go, well, because women experience things differently than men do sometimes, and that provides a different perspective on religious, like, because most of it was atheism, but from different perspectives. So, and we had many men covering the subject.
Yeah.
That
is true. That is very true.
But then we tried putting on a second conference, and we wanted to gear it towards a mix of atheism and social justice. And that was really hard to get off the ground. Like, it was so hard to get support and get the funding and whatnot, like, because so many people reject like any kind of like change against the status quo. But anyway,
I went to one called Second or So Social Justice. I flew to Houston to go to it.
Nice.
So,
and I know like there is, I can't remember, like Stephanie's Van and some other feminists who put on a skeptic conference that is very social justice oriented, and it's very good. I don't know if they still do it, but they did it for many years, and they had lots of success with it. So I'm quite happy that they did that. But
like I told you before, really, I wasn't very humanistic at all until I became an atheist. So that's why, to me, I don't have any show where I'm like not talking in a sense about my atheism, because it is a very big deal to me. But it's not the only deal. I feel like this is what I feel like. The person like me realizes at first, God isn't real. It's because the devil isn't real, and all this is nonsense. And then I thought, okay, how am I going to run my life, in a sense? That, to me, I don't see how an atheist can then limit to just atheism. I'm like, your brain didn't my first thought was, okay, it's all over. And then the second thought is, what kind of moral system am I putting in its place?
And that means you have to address issues of social justice.
I have to. That's what I'm saying. How could you get for me, Huggy? It's really crazy what they're saying. Like, so your first thought was wrong. Oh, what great, wonderful. And your next thought was, now I need to be a moral person. Or like, no. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't evolve then, like, because the next thought beyond the atheist, the next thought beyond this is not true is, okay, let's establish what is, and if there really isn't nothing coming to save us, we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, that's right. So what kind of world do we want to live in?
What kind of, so how do you not back to social justice?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Anyways, let's go on. But I'm just saying, to me, I always thought it was extremely odd that they think that there's a different. I'm like, seriously? So
Yeah.
that logical thinking and critical thinking that brought you to the no God did not bring you to the I must help?
Right. Yeah, no, it just, yeah, I don't know. I have trouble with it myself. So, right. So as slavery was prohibited between Christians and could only be imposed upon non-Christian prisoners of war and or men already sold as slaves, the debate on Christianization was particularly acute during the early 16th century, when Spanish conquerors and settlers sought to mobilize indigenous labor. Later, two Dominican friars, Bartolomé de las Casas and the philosopher Juan Gines de Sepulveda, held the Valladolid debate, with the former arguing that Native Americans were endowed with souls like all other human beings, while the latter argued to the contrary to justify their enslavement. In 1537, the papal
Pause a second.
bull... Oh, yeah.
Is that not an insane thing? Of course, you and me as atheists and other atheists don't believe in souls.
Right.
But if you had a worldview, right, that everyone who's a human is born with the soul, and then even having a dialogue is, do we really believe that natives do? I mean, indigenous people?
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's fucked, eh?
sickening fucking racist bullshit.
Yeah.
To me.
No, it is. Yeah, it's fucked.
Well, because you weren't responding, so I'm like, all right, well, to me, it sure is fucked up.
No, it absolutely is. Objectively so, I think.
Yeah, there we go.
In 1537, the papal bull Sublius Deus definitively recognized that Native Americans possessed souls, thus prohibiting their enslavement, without putting an end to the debate. Some claimed that a native who had rebelled and then been captured could be enslaved nonetheless. With the arrival of European colonists, enslavement of indigenous peoples became commodified, expanded in unexpected ways, and came to resemble the kinds of human trafficking that are recognizable to us today. While disease was the main killer of indigenous peoples, the practice of slavery and forced labor was also a significant contributor to the indigenous death toll. With the arrival of Europeans other than Spanish, enslavement of native populations increased, since there were no prohibitions against slavery until decades later. It is estimated that from Columbus's arrival to the end of the 19th century, between 2.5 and 5 million Native Americans were forced into slavery. Indigenous men, women, and children.
Pause for a second. Did you normally think of that?
No, you don't usually. Like, that's not usually something that even I have encountered, knowing like the slavery of Native Americans in.
Dude, when I have watched, I don't know now which shows, but about Native Americans to even tell you to go look up for them. But as I watched tons of stuff,
right?
Anyway, so I watched a show, and it was about how Native Americans were used to like do mining and stuff, and
okay,
they talked about it. It's just inhuman, them whipping them and starving them, and long hours, anyways, it's just disgusting as fuck. Like, yeah.
I know. I don't know if we talked about it much in our last one, but there was like a practice of attempting to starve out like indigenous peoples in Saskatchewan in the past,
right.
Trying to like get them off of certain areas of land. They would cut off their food supplies and whatnot, like try and make them reliant on the state in so many ways. And it's similar, but I don't recall them being enslaved in the same way. But I mean, genocide is genocide, right?
Well, yeah, they're in a sense they're doing genocide while making capitalist wealth.
Yeah,
in a sense, because they're stealing the gold and riches and stuff. And like I said, so imagine, not only are you enslaved and doing this shit until you die, you have to suffer the whole time. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, it's fucked.
yeah. How does Spain not owe reparations?
Right.
Or
Oh, of
Portugal?
course, yeah, for
Or,
sure.
any
Right?
of the things. But I'm just saying, Spain, man, the guilt that should be on their head,
Yeah.
it should be huge.
Yeah. Indigenous men, women, and children were often forced into labor in sparsely populated frontier settings, in the household or in the toxic gold and silver mines. Eventually, most of the Western Hemisphere came under the control of the Western European governments, leading to changes to its landscape, population, and plant and animal life. In the 19th century, over 50 million people left Western Europe for the Americas. The post-1492 era is known as the period of the Columbian Exchange, a dramatically widespread exchange of animals, plants, culture, human populations, including slaves, ideas, and communicable diseases between the American and Afro-Eurasian hemispheres, following Columbus's voyages to the Americas. Most scholars writing at the end of the 19th century estimated that the pre-Columbian population was as low as 10 million. By the end of the 20th century, most scholars gravitated to a middle estimate of around 50 million, with some historians arguing for an estimate of 100 million or more. All right, so I guess moving along, we've got a map that shows the kind of the area of North America that and various places that were inhabited by or being invaded by European colonizers. And it says the map of North America, 1656 to 1750, France in blue, Great Britain in pink and purple, and Spain in orange. Colonization of the United States. Several European countries attempted to found colonies in the Americas after 1500. Most of those attempts ended in failure. The colonists themselves faced high death rates from disease, starvation, insufficient resupply, conflict with Native Americans, attacks by rival European powers, and other causes. Spain had numerous failed attempts, including San Miguel de Guadalupe in South Carolina in 1526, Panfilo de Narvaez expedition in Florida's Gulf Coast, 1528 to 1536, Pensacola in West Florida, 1559 to 1561, Fort San Juan in North Carolina, 1567 to 68, and the Jason Mission in Virginia, 1570 to 1571. The French failed at Paris Island, South Carolina, 1562 to 63. Fort Caroline on Florida's Atlantic coast, 1564 to 65. Saint Croix Island, Maine, 1604 to 1605, and Fort St. Louis, Texas, 1685 to 89. And the most notable English failures were the lost colony of Roanoke in 1583 to 90, and in North Carolina, and the Popham colony in Maine, 1607 to 1608. It was at the Roanoke colony that Virginia Dare became the first English child born in America. Her fate is unknown. Colonists came from European kingdoms that had highly developed military, naval, governmental, and entrepreneurial capabilities. The Spanish and Portuguese centuries-old experience of conquest and colonization during the Reconquista, coupled with new oceanic ship navigation skills, provided the tools, ability, and desire to colonize the New World. These efforts were managed respectively by the Casa de Contratación and the Casa da India. England, France, and the Netherlands had also started colonies in the West Indies and North America. They had the ability to build ocean-worthy ships, but did not have a strong history of colonization in foreign lands, as did Portugal and Spain. However, English entrepreneurs gave their colonies a foundation of merchant-based investment that seemed to need much less government support. Initially, matters concerning the colonies were dealt with primarily by the Privy Council of England and its committees. The Commission of Trade was set up in 1625 as the first special body convened to advise on colonial plantation questions. From 1696 until the end of the American Revolution, colonial affairs were the responsibility of the Board of Trade in partnership with the relevant Secretaries of State, which changed from the Secretary of State for the Southern Department to the Secretary of the State for the Colonies in 1768. Russia explored the area that became Alaska, starting with the Second Kamchatka expedition in the 1730s and early 1740s. Their first settlement was founded in 1784 by Grigory Shelyakov. The Russian-American Company was formed in 1799 with the influence of Nikolai Rezanov for the purpose of buying sea otters for their fur from native hunters. In 1867, the U.S. purchased Alaska, and nearly all Russians abandoned the area except for a few missionaries of the Russian Orthodox Church working among the natives. Spain established several small outposts in Florida in the early 16th century. The most important of these was St. Augustine, founded alongside Mission Nombre de Dios in 1565, but repeatedly attacked and burned by pirates, privateers, and English forces, and nearly all the Spanish left after the Treaty of Paris in 1763, which ceded Florida to Great Britain. Certain first Spanish period structures remain today, especially those made of coquina, a limestone quarried nearby. The British attacked Spanish Florida during numerous wars. As early as 1687, the Spanish government had begun to offer asylum to slaves from British colonies, and the Spanish crown officially proclaimed in 1693 that runaway slaves would find freedom in Florida in return for converting to Catholicism and 4 years of military service to the Spanish crown. In effect, Spaniards created a maroon settlement in Florida as a frontline defense against English attacks from the north.
Pause for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they give military service and endanger their life, then they can have something. It reminds me when this chick said, well, you know, Damien, I understand you don't like America, but you understand I was a foreigner and I served time in the military, and that's how I got to get my legal citizenship, whatever, for America. Right. Just like this, right? Does that sound really like a just thing? You know, you're being treated as a slave. I'll kind of free you, but you owe me.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and okay, so I'm glad that you have full citizen rights, or you got what you needed from the government. But what if you had to go into, like, you're in the military? What if you had to go into a conflict zone and ended up dying? Then you didn't get what you wanted. You just served the state, right?
But I said, but a just country would have just let you in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like a lot of people go into the military service because they want to get their education paid for. But in a just country, you wouldn't have to do that.
See, you get my thinking, right?
Yeah, like, this is wrong, actually. Like, that you have to join the military to do this stuff.
Right, it's simple. Just like I'm saying, someone is in slavery and we let them be out of slavery. We don't say, now pay me money.
Right.
Do endanger your life for me.
Yeah.
What the shit?
No.
If you're a just person, you say you're no longer slave. Done.
Okay, you're free here.
Free.
Good. The end.
Right? Free, especially in the land of the free or whatever, right?
Right.
Anyways, they're free, you know.
Yeah.
Free. I mean, the fact that someone has to buy freedom it's disgusting. Like, what do you mean? They have to buy freedom.
Yeah. Oh, not only did they have to give 4 years of military service, they also had to convert to the Catholicism, which was the dominant religion. Yeah. So, in effect, Spaniards created a maroon settlement. Oh, I already said that. Yeah. This settlement was centered at Fort Mose. Spain also intended to destabilize the plantation economy of the British colonies by creating a free black community to attract slaves. Notable British raids on St. Augustine were James Moore's 1702 raid and James Oglethorpe's 1740 siege. In 1763, Spain traded Florida to Great Britain in exchange for control of Havana, Cuba, which the British had captured during the 7 Years' War. Florida was home to about 3,000 Spaniards at the time, and nearly all quickly left. Britain occupied Florida, but did not send in many settlers to the area. Dr. Andrew Turnbull's failed colony at New Smyrna, however, resulted in hundreds of Menorcans, Greeks, and Italians settling in St. Augustine in 1777. During the American Revolution, East and West Florida were Loyalist colonies. Spain regained control of Florida in 1783 by the Peace of Paris, which ended the Revolutionary War. Spain sent no more settlers or missionaries to Florida during the Second Spanish period. The inhabitants of West Florida revolted against the Spanish in 1810 and formed the Republic of West Florida, which was quickly annexed by the United States. The United States took possession of East Florida in 1821, according to the terms of the Adams-Onis Treaty. The predominant culture of the South was rooted in the settlement of the region by British colonists. In the 17th century, most voluntary colonists were of English origins, who settled chiefly along the coastal regions of the eastern seaboard. The majority of early British settlers were indentured servants, who gained freedom after enough work to pay off their passage. The wealthier men who paid their way received land grants known as head rights to encourage settlement. The French and Spanish established colonies in Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. The Spanish colonized Florida in the 16th century, with their communities reaching a peak in the late 17th century. In the British and French colonies, most colonists arrived after 1700. They cleared land, built houses and outbuildings, and worked on the large plantations that dominated the export agriculture. Many were involved in labor-intensive cultivation of tobacco, the first cash crop of Virginia. With a decrease in the number of British willing to go to the colonies in the 18th century, planters began importing more enslaved Africans, who became the predominant labor force on the plantations. Tobacco exhausted the soil quickly, requiring new fields to be cleared on a regular basis. Old fields were used as pasture and for crops such as corn and wheat, or allowed to grow into woodlots. Rice cultivation in South Carolina became another major commodity crop. Some historians have argued that slaves from the lowlands of Western Africa, where rice was a basic crop, provided key skills, knowledge, and technology for irrigation and construction of earthworks to support rice cultivation. The early methods and tools used in South Carolina were congruent with those in Africa. British colonists would have had little or no familiarity with the complex process of growing rice in the fields flooded by irrigation works. In the mid to late 18th century, large groups of Scots and Ulster Scots, later called the Scots-Irish, immigrated from and settled in the backcountry of Appalachia and the Piedmont. They were the largest group of colonists from the British Isles before the American Revolution. In a census taken in 2000 of Americans and their self-reported ancestries, areas where people reported American ancestry were the places where historically many Scottish, Scotch-Irish, and English borderer Protestants settled in America. The interior, as well as some of the coastal areas of the South, and especially the Appalachian region, the population with some Scots and Scots-Irish ancestry may number 47 million, as most people have multiple heritages, some of which they may not know. The early colonists, especially the Scots-Irish in the backcountry, engaged in warfare, trade, and cultural exchanges. Those living in the backcountry were more likely to join with Creek Indians, Cherokee, and Choctaws, and other regional native groups. The oldest university in the South, the College of William and Mary, was founded in 1693 in Virginia. It pioneered in the teaching of political economy and educated future U.S. presidents Jefferson, Monroe, and Tyler, all from Virginia. Indeed, the entire region dominated politics in the first party system era. For example, 4 of the first 5 presidents, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe, were from Virginia. The 2 oldest public universities are also in the South: the University of North Carolina, 1795, and the University of Georgia, 1785. The colonial South included the plantation colonies of the Chesapeake region, which is Virginia, Maryland, and by some classifications, Delaware, and the lower South, Carolina, which eventually split into North and South Carolina and Georgia. Spain ceded Florida to Great Britain in 1763, which established the colonies of East and West Florida. The Floridas remained loyal to Great Britain during the American Revolution. They were returned to Spain in 1783 in exchange for the Bahamas, at which time most of the British left. The Spanish then neglected the Floridas. Few Spaniards lived there when the U.S. bought the area in 1819. Mainly due to discrimination, there was often a separation between English colonial communities and indigenous communities. The Europeans viewed the natives as savages who were not worthy of participating in what they considered civilized society. The native people of North America did not die out nearly as rapidly nor as greatly as those in Central and South America, due in part to their exclusion from British society. The indigenous people continued to be stripped of their native lands and were pushed further out west. The English eventually went on to control much of the eastern North America, the Caribbean, and parts of South America. They also gained Florida and Quebec in the French and Indian War. Florida. Florida is a state in the southeastern region of the United States, bordered to the west by the Gulf of Mexico, Alabama to the northwest, Georgia to the north, the Bahamas and the Atlantic Ocean to the east, and the Straits of Florida and Cuba to the south. It is the only state that borders both the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. With a population exceeding 21 million, it is the 3rd most populous state in the nation and ranks 8th in population density as of 2020. It spans 65,758 square miles, or 170,310 square kilometers, ranking 22nd in area among the 50 states. The Miami metropolitan area, anchored by the cities of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach, is the state's largest metropolitan area, with a population of 6.138 million. And the state's most populous city is Jacksonville, with a population of 949,611. Florida's other major population centers include Tampa Bay, Orlando, Cape Coral, and the state capital of Tallahassee. Various Native American groups have inhabited Florida for at least 14,000 years. In 1513, Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de Leon became the first known European to make landfall, calling the region La Florida for its lush greenery and the Easter season.
So not Ponce de Leon Day? Columbus Day.
Yeah, that's weird, eh? Weird.
Well, I think it actually should be just removed and called Indigenous Peoples Day. How about that?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And this one Italian guy tried to tell me, he goes, Damien, you need to understand, everyone knows that it's not Columbus actually discovered America. What that is the government was trying to appease the Italians after 5 of them were wrongly killed by a mob or whatever. And so it remembers that. So if you take away Columbus Day, that'll be no longer remembered. I go, hey, you know what?
Nobody knows that's why anyway.
but 5 people dying, you want to supersede, get this, a few million died.
Yeah.
Native American genocide on the American continents. Is that what you want? You want your day that's a lie?
Yeah.
You think for the 5 people? I was saying even if they deserved a day, those 5 people.
Sure.
My point is to supersede millions.
Yeah.
You get axiology. Like, how is that an equal value?
No, that's right. Yeah.
Seriously. I go. Here's what you should do. you should, if you think it's important, champion Indigenous Peoples Day, because Columbus Day needs to end, and have them, whatever that Haymark, riot or something, whatever, I don't know what it is, but whatever the riot was that these people were killed, ask Congress to make a day for that, not on Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know exactly what the guy was talking about, but depending on like what the cause that they were killed for, like maybe that's a whole other thing that shouldn't be tied up into this Columbus Day stuff.
Of course it shouldn't. That was my point.
Like why would yeah, like okay, so maybe the US government did do that, but nobody knows that they did that, for starters. But also, that's not a justification of it. And maybe if we should honor those people, they should have their own day.
And it actually be, I don't know, not about Columbus, but about those people. As I was, saying the logic, I was trying to show him your logic is not logical.
Yeah. No, it's not consistent in any way.
It's not consistent. Seriously. And you're not going to even get what you want and aren't even championing what you're saying. I never heard of this. So obviously that those people have been forgotten because you've hidden it, supposedly, with Columbus Day.
Right.
But anyways, I don't like Columbus Day also besides that because, like I told you, because literally did not ever come to America. So Ponce de Leon that you just read. That's right. Back to that point. Yeah. Like literally it's a fucking lie and stop telling it.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be a day that's a complete lie.
Exactly.
And we need to quit lying about Indigenous, in a sense, genocide that all the powers try to do.
Yeah. Okay. Florida subsequently became the first area in the continental U.S. to be permanently settled by Europeans and the Spanish colony of St. Augustine, founded in 1565. Being the oldest continuously inhabited city, Florida was repeatedly contested by Spain and Great Britain before being ceded to the U.S. in 1819. It was admitted It was admitted as the 27th state on March 3rd, 1845. Florida was the principal location of the Seminole Wars, 1816 to 1858, the longest and most extensive of the Indian Wars in U.S. history. The state seceded from the Union on January 10th, 1861, becoming one of the 7 original Confederate states, and was readmitted to the Union after the Civil War on June 25th, 1868. People known as Paleo-Indians entered Florida at least 14,000 years ago. By the 16th century, the earliest time for which there is a historical record, major groups of people living in Florida included the Apalachee of the Florida Panhandle, the Timucua of the northern and central Florida, the A's of the central Atlantic coast, and the Calusa of southwest Florida. In May 1539, Conquistador Hernando de Soto skirted the coast of Florida, searching for a deep harbor to land. He described a thick wall of red mangroves spread mile after mile, some reaching as high as 70 feet, or 21 meters, with intertwined and elevated routes making landing difficult. The Spanish introduced Christianity, cattle, horses, sheep, the Castilian language, and more to Florida. Spain established several settlements in Florida with varying degrees of success. In 1559, Don Tristan de Luna y Arellano established a settlement at present-day Pensacola, making it the first attempted settlement in Florida, but it was mostly abandoned by 1561. In 1564 to 1565, there was a French settlement at Fort Caroline in present-day Duval County, which was destroyed by the Spanish. In 1565, the settlement of St. Augustine was established under the leadership of Admiral and Governor Pedro Mendez de Aviles, creating what would become one of the oldest continuously occupied European settlements in the continental U.S. and establishing the first generation of Floridanos and the government of Florida. Spain maintained strategic control over the region by converting the local tribes to Christianity. The marriage between Luisa de Abrego and a free black domestic servant from Seville, and Miguel Rodriguez, a white Segovian, occurred in 1565 in St. Augustine. It was the first recorded Christian marriage in the continental United States. Some Spanish married or had unions with Pensacola Creek or African women, both slave and free, and their descendants created a mixed race population of mestizos or mulattoes. The Spanish encouraged slaves from the 13 colonies to come to Florida as a refuge, promising freedom in exchange for conversion to Catholicism. King Charles II of Spain issued a royal proclamation freeing all slaves who fled to Spanish Florida and accepted conversion and baptism. Most went to the area.
I was going to say, and not to mention in the swamps and stuff, some of them went down there to be completely free with the Seminoles. Because the Seminoles, as long as you would fight with them, in a sense, in other words, if the Europeans attack, if you'll fight with us, then
you can live with us.
One of us live with one of as one of us too, because they actually started dressing, like Seminole, people. So in fact, they helped do revolts. There's some famous ex-blacks, enslaved people that were Seminoles now, and carried out raids and did stuff against America.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's actually also sad. So they're free,
right?
And when the Americans come, some of them are allowed to, in a sense, to go the Trail of Tears, right? So some Black Native Americans went to on the Trail of Tears to Oklahoma, and now there's problems between the Oklahoma, the tribe of Seminoles that is not African American. They say they don't want them in there, even though as slaves they fought, in a sense, for Seminole lands and were considered Seminoles, and then went on the Trail of Tears with them and ended up there. There's So I'm just saying that their story is pretty sad that they go up there and the government doesn't want to accept them because the government says that that they're Black Seminoles, and to them that was just ex-slaves. They didn't
They don't care.
They had no tribal status, so really even saying the name Seminole was just stupid.
Right? Yeah, it's like
If you're saying if you're not really part of the well, first off, they had to have been, in a sense, part of that group, because they followed on Trail of Tears, and like I said, they ended up in native land, Seminole, reservation or whatever, the area of Oklahoma, and together, and there was some intermingling, anyways.
Of course,
obviously, people were marrying across. Anyway, so I feel like it's pretty sad that now they're not considered part of the tribe by the tribe or America.
Right? Yeah, they kind of got screwed over in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
But as Cory says, you always have to assume that people with power, what are they going to do? They're going to not do the right thing.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so most went to the area around St. Augustine, but escaped slaves. Also reached Pensacola, St. Augustine, had mustered an all-Black militia unit defending Spanish Florida as early as 1683. The geographical area of Spanish claims in La Florida diminished with the establishment of English settlements in the north and French claims to the west. English colonists and buccaneers launched several attacks on St. Augustine in the 17th and 18th centuries, razing the city and its cathedral to the ground several times. Spain built the Castillo de San Marcos in 1672 and Fort Matanas, I think, in 1742 to defend Florida's capital city from attacks and to maintain its strategic position in the defense of the Captaincy General of Cuba and the Spanish West Indies. In 1738, the Spanish governor of Florida, Manuel de Montano, established Fort Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mos near St. Augustine, a fortified town for escaped slaves to whom Montano granted citizenship and freedom in return for their service in the Florida militia, and which became the first free black settlement legally sanctioned in North America. In 1763, Spain traded Florida to the Kingdom of Great Britain for control of Havana, Cuba, which had been captured by the British during the 7 Years' War. The trade was done as part of the 1763 Treaty of Paris, which ended the 7 Years' War. Spain was granted Louisiana from France due to their loss of Florida. A large portion of the Florida population left, taking along large portions of the remaining indigenous population with them to Cuba. The British soon constructed the King's Road connecting St. Augustine to Georgia. The road crossed the St. Johns River at a narrow point called Wakapilakta, or the British name Cow Ford, reflecting the fact that cattle were brought across the river there. The British divided and consolidated the Florida provinces, Las Floridas, into East Florida and West Florida, a division the Spanish government kept after the brief British period. The British government gave land grants to officers and soldiers who had fought in the French and Indian War in order to encourage settlement, in order to induce settlers to move to Florida, and report of its natural wealth were published in England. A number of British settlers who were described as being energetic and of good character moved to Florida, mostly coming from South Carolina, Georgia, and England. There was also a group of settlers who came from the colony of Bermuda. This was the first permanent English-speaking population in what is now Duval County, Baker County, St. Johns County, and Nassau County. The British constructed good public roads and introduced the cultivation of sugarcane, indigo, and fruits, as well as the export of lumber. The British governors were directed to call general assemblies as soon as possible in order to make laws for the Floridas, and in the meantime, they were, with the advice of councils, to establish courts. This was the first introduction of the English-derived legal system, which Florida still has today, including trial by jury, habeas corpus, and the county-based government. Neither East Florida nor West Florida sent any representatives to Philadelphia to draft the Declaration of Independence. Florida remained a loyalist stronghold for the duration of the American Revolution. Spain regained both East and West Florida after Britain's defeat in the Revolutionary War, and the subsequent Treaty of Versailles in 1783, and continued the provincial divisions until 1821. Defense of Florida's northern border with the United States was minor during the Second Spanish period. The region had became a haven for escaped slaves and a base for Indian attacks against U.S. territories, and the U.S. pressed Spain for reform. Americans of English and Scots-Irish descent began moving into northern Florida from the backwoods of Georgia and North Carolina. Though technically not allowed by the Spanish authorities and the Floridan government, they were never able to effectively police the border region, and the backwoods settlers from the United States would continue to immigrate into Florida unchecked. These migrants, mixing with the already present British settlers who had remained in Florida since the British period.
Pause a second. Isn't it funny now that their whole thing is about migrants? You should stop them and all this.
Oh yeah.
A lot of these same, bigots are crossing borders and doing stuff. Their ancestors or whatever, if they have stuff long enough, back. It's like, first off, to me, as you know, everybody's been immigrating everywhere, like, and moving around and everything from the beginning of time. Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
that's even before us. I'm just saying, once again, it's not us. I'm saying, because this is the same with the Soviets had or Decenivans, whatever they call it, but had large portions, and Neanderthals, they had large swaths of area. It's like, now imagine how many countries now would be involved in just the area that they roam.
Right.
Unreal, man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's pretty silly to be anti-immigration. It's just, yeah.
But we know why. Why is, to me, has always been the same. It's the white supremacy. The South was just more honest. I think a lot of America really was that bigoted.
Yeah.
Or still is,
Yeah, that's right. And even if they like to pretend otherwise, right? Yeah. They would immigrate into Florida unchecked. These migrants, mixing with the already present British settlers who had remained in Florida since the British period, would be the progenitors of the population known as Florida crackers. I'm just gonna quickly put that up. I want to read that wiki page when I come back to it later. These American settlers established a permanent foothold in the area and ignored Spanish authorities. The British settlers who had remained also resented Spanish rule, leading to a rebellion in 1810 and the establishment for 90 days of the so-called Free and Independent Republic of West Florida on September 23. After meetings beginning in June, rebels overcame the garrison at Baton Rouge, now in Louisiana, and unfurled the flag of the new republic, a single white star on a blue field. This flag would later become known as the Bonnie Blue Flag. In 1810, parts of West Florida were annexed by the proclamation of President James Madison, who claimed the region as part of the Louisiana Purchase. These parts were incorporated into the newly formed territory of Orleans. The U.S. annexed the Mobile District of West Florida to the Mississippi Territory in 1812. Spain continued to dispute the area, though the United States gradually increased the area it occupied in 1812. In 1812, a group of settlers from Georgia, with de facto support from the U.S. federal government, attempted to overthrow the Floridan government. I always want to say Floridian government. The Floridan government with the province of East Florida. The settlers hoped to convince Floridians, there that one is right, to join their cause and proclaimed independence from Spain. But the settlers lost their tenuous support from the federal government and abandoned their cause by 1813. Traditionally, historians argued that the Seminoles, based in East Florida, began raiding Georgia settlements and offering havens for runaway slaves. The United States Army led increasingly frequent incursions into Spanish territory, including the 1817-1818 campaign against the Seminole Indians by Andrew Jackson that became known as the First Seminole War. The United States...
I want to address something, too, that's interesting to know. In a sense, Creek and Muskogee, I think, are the two tribes that become part of the Seminole people.
Oh, okay.
Seminole is not what they called themselves.
Makes sense.
Means something like wild person or something. It's a derogatory term. It is not even, in a sense, an indigenous term. It's a non-indigenous term, but I think it's classified because the government wanted to call them that. And, if it's going to be the right thing or the government thing,
it's usually going to end up the government thing.
Which is the wrong thing. I'm just saying there's a lot going on. So the Muskogee and the Creek, they had sometimes not, I don't know to what extent for everyone, but plantations or whatever to some amount or whatever, or like where they owned black chattel slaves from Africa and were running them like an American slavery.
Okay.
So I don't know if some of the slaves also ran from Creek or Muskogee tribes, not just, I'm saying, from Georgia as far as white settlers is all I'm trying to say. So the Seminoles, even though they were from that in a sense, which, like I said, Seminoles is a weird word, even though they use it now, because there's no such thing.
Right.
Even like when the Seminole tribe tried to sign a treaty, another tribe that they all called Seminoles, not maybe themselves, but the white people, because obviously the natives probably knew they weren't called that.
Yeah.
Because they had, like, I don't know, a name already. And anyway, so that one of the tribes said we're not, so they just called it a different kind of Seminole.
Okay.
Like, yeah, we're not signing a treaty with you. We're not even that. We're not even those people. Anyways, so just going back to even the names, we still don't today. And like I said, there's people I'm sure that do not know that Seminole is, in a sense, this arbitrary bigotry name, really, that is now not seen that way, by this people. But just saying that it's. And also that it's not even one. It never was one. That's another thing too. It never was just one tribe.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how Americans, like, let's simplify it. You all look brown.
Yeah.
Or red or whatever, bigotry shit.
Of course. Yeah. So the United States now effectively controlled East Florida. Control was necessary, according to the Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, because Florida had become a derelict open to the occupancy of every enemy, civilized or savage, of the United States, and serving no other earthly purpose than as a post of annoyance to them.
I need to pause for a second. You just read some propaganda.
Yeah, no shit, eh? Yeah.
Oh, like, speaking of which, just real quick, like Israel going into fucking Gaza Strip and doing all kinds of, and then goes propaganda. Well,
we had no choice.
War crimes, but we feel they're also doing war crimes. So that means we didn't do war crimes.
That's right. We had no choice. We're the good guys.
We just became the good guys.
Yeah.
Freedom fighters.
We can just say that. Yeah, we could just say that because
I just watched that.
Yeah.
This morning before talking.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I thought.
That's why it's on your mind. Yeah. No, I get it. Yep. More recent historians describe that after U.S. independence, settlers in Georgia increased pressure on Seminole lands, and skirmishes near the border led to the First Seminole War, 1816 to 1819. The United States purchased Florida from Spain by the Adams-Onis Treaty, 1819, and took possession in 1821. The Seminole were moved out of their rich farmland in northern Florida and confined to a large reservation in the interior of the Florida Peninsula by the Treaty of Moultrie Creek in 1823. Passage of the Indian Removal Act, 1830, led to the Treaty of Payne's Landing, 1832, which called for the relocation of all Seminole to Indian Territory, now Oklahoma.
Just look at how long it took to break the treaty.
Yeah, no kidding.
It wasn't even that long. Here, we'll give you this. Stop fighting. We'll give you this land. It's always going to be yours. And then, what is it, like 20 years later? Okay, fuck that. You all have to leave.
In fact, actually, get out. Yeah. Some resisted, leading to the Second Seminole War, the bloodiest war against Native Americans in United States history.
Did
By
you know
18, yeah, geez.
Yeah, man, did you know that before?
No.
That in Florida is where there was the worst in American history?
That's crazy, eh? No, I did not know that. I actually don't think that I knew about the Seminole Wars at all. Now that, trying to go back in my head, I'm like, I don't think I knew any of this stuff.
Don't feel bad. Neither did I. I'm from California. I know about some of the native peoples in California, like the Chumash Indians and stuff, and how they've had artifacts there at least 10,000 years. It's even crazier too, and they're not registered as a tribe that's totally acknowledged by the United States.
No, geez.
That is a full nation or whatever that. Anyways, because if America's going to have a chance to do the right thing or not do the right thing,
we know which way they'll go.
Kind of applies just right there.
We know which way they'll go. They're never going to do the right thing. So,
But it's so often that it really, that's why I said, how can anybody honestly go, oh, I'm proud? Really?
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing to the fuck be proud of.
Yeah, it's similar like with Canada Day just passing, like on the 1st there. Like like you got people that are going, well, what are you going to do for Canada Day? What are you going to do for Canada Day? I'm working, but also I don't care about that at all.
It's like do you mean before or after I burned the Canadian flag?
Yeah, like
so I can figure out in sequence what you want to know about the whole day.
Yeah, that's right. At which point in my day do you want to know? Because I'm not celebrating our country. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. By 1842, however, most Seminoles and Black Seminoles facing starvation were removed to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi River. Perhaps fewer than 200 Seminoles remained in Florida after the Third Seminole War, 1855 to 1858, having taken refuge in the Everglades, from where they never surrendered to the U.S.
Now, hold on. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
There's another fact that I know Corey maybe didn't know, and neither did I, that this is the one tribe that actually never surrendered to the United States.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah, good for them. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They fostered a resurgence in traditional customs and a culture of staunch independence. Florida had become a burden to Spain, which could not afford to send settlers or troops due to the devastation caused by the Peninsular War. Madrid therefore decided to cede the territory to the United States through the Adams-Onis Treaty, which took effect in 1821. President James Monroe was authorized on March 3, 1821, to take possession of East Florida and West Florida for the United States and provide for initial governance. Andrew Jackson, on behalf of the U.S. federal government, served as a military commissioner with the powers of governor of the newly acquired territory for a brief period. On March 30th, 1822, the U.S. Congress merged East Florida and part of West Florida into the Florida Territory. By the early 1800s, Indian removal was a significant issue throughout the southeastern U.S. and also in Florida. In 1830, the U.S. Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, and as settlement increased, pressure grew on the U.S. government to remove the Indians from Florida. Seminoles offered sanctuary to blacks. I don't like the way that's framed. Seminoles offered sanctuary to black people, and these became known as the Black Seminoles.
But it just shows, Corey, that you have a higher, standard towards you thinking about the care of others.
Yeah. Then I guess whoever wrote this even.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's a good thing. Once again, about what's good and what's not good. That's why I won't accept nihilism's opinion that there is no such thing as good and not good.
Right.
Because I've already decided nihilism is not good.
Yeah.
Especially if it makes you deny the fact of good.
Exactly.
Or bad. Like something can be horrid or not good. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. We should like I guess maybe we have talked off and on about nihilism for like
we probably should do a whole thing on axiology too with you.
Yeah.
But also I was just thinking the other day because I talked to someone about philosophy, and I was thinking we should do where I explain a couple things that make, if you understand, I think makes it easier. Because at least how I think. Because other people think different ways, but there's in a sense like 3 or 4 different kinds of ways of truth.
Right.
But they're generally like people that are those kind of philosophers. But a lot of them are real like dogmatic, like it's left and right or whatever. I mean, it's like super dogmatic. That they're only, let's say, that's not how I view it. I view it differently, and I explain it, and no one I've ever explained it to doesn't go, yeah, wow. But anyway, so it's pragmatics, and then there's what's called coherence theory of truth. Like something is coherent, it makes sense. And then there is the correspondence theory of truth. which is basically when you understand that something, if you call it evidence and you show me something, in a sense, you're talking about that has to correspond with that.
Okay.
Like something in the real world, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not something in your mind, not some like great logical concept, but some actual tangible thing.
Right.
So
Like not just a thought experiment.
right. So, but there's a problem is that one says this is only truth, this is only truth, this is only truth. And even in philosophers, people that are scientists without knowing it are doing the last one in a sense. Then the things have to correspond.
Right.
They don't care what you're thinking about. It has to correspond to it. Yeah, mathematical equations could be great, but they also could just be talking fantasy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. If you can't practically apply it, then who cares, in a sense?
Yeah, exactly. So, but they see it as an either or whatever. But I don't see it that way. And I explain it because to me, it goes back to like how I explain thinking in general, sort of. And I'm going to do it real quick, just but I'm going to do a whole show on just this because I like all this stuff. And it really helps, I think, once you grasp how I see it too. So something activating event happens, right? And then you have thinking, right?
Yep.
Like if I scream right now, you're gonna have a thinking, whether you like it or not. It's gonna you're gonna react.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just saying. So the first thing that happens is just thinking. Problem is, you learn very quickly that thinking is not ordered. It's all over the place. It's not focused, right? Yeah. And to actually understand something, right, to make judgments, which judgments are required to make true statements, period. Right? So you value judgment. So the how you get to that thing is a process, and I explain it. Like, because people say, how do you go from not knowing to knowing? I go, now I'm explaining to you. Activating event happens. You have some things. You start to realize you can't just leave it random, right? If you want to try to understand, you can't leave just random thoughts shooting in and out of your head. It has to be more focused. So to me, this is pragmatic. You just pragmatically realize to grasp even the beginning of truth, you need to have a structure. You just can't have randomness all over the place, right? This is the same thing to me in two ways. One is that becomes reason because you just demanded a focus, the type of thinking. Reason is a type of ordered thinking. So that's one thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening is you're using the tool of pragmatics. You went from I don't know, but boy, reason sure seems way better effective than understanding the world than unreason or just cluttered thinking.
Right.
In a sense. Non-ordered thinking. So it builds on itself. Everything in it, without realizing it, we're built, if it's logical and true and evidence and whatever, it's building on itself in a sense philosophically. So the next thing is you have reason. So now you're kind of demanding things have to follow patterns or we have to be accurate. Or if they don't follow patterns, we need to recognize it, whatever. It's being aware of what's rational.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, but that actually isn't ever telling you something. That just is a way of thinking.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to explain. So pragmatically, you don't know what truth or not truth is. Pragmatically, you start with not knowing. Right? So you don't know anything. But you do know that very quickly that just randomly thinking is never going to get to a point.
Right.
So you're focusing it into, it has to be a certain kind, right? So you have a standard, which is reason, which is pragmatics, which is also pre-logic.
Right.
Because you haven't got to what's logical. You've just realized you have to have a standard like logic to get somewhere. So right, that's all pragmatics to me. Right. So I just explained, how can you ever say you don't need that? Every fucking thinker needs that. So to say that you're going to use pragmatics for the foundation for everything you do, you need to rethink that. So the next thing, right, to me is the coherence theory of truth. It doesn't say I know what is truth externally. It's a logic thinking proposition. You're saying that you can't tell me something that is inconsistent. Just like the three rules of logic, right? There's no excluded middle. There's, a thing is a thing in a sense.
Right.
So So a thing can't be not a thing. In other words, like you can't say Cory is a human being and he's also not a human being.
Right, like A is A.
Right, but right, correct. You're making it simplified, which is it is. But I agree. A is A equals A. But what I'm saying is the thing has to be a thing. What I'm saying is, so you're and then you use that standard, right? See, before it was just a standard, but now you do something with it.
Okay.
Pragmatics to me of truth is a joke. That statement, that concept is a joke. It isn't about truth. Pragmatics to me should be how you foundationalize what your way of doing things are. And if they're done in an accurate, logical, reasoned way, that builds everything else justification or truth quality or truth assurance or whatever. There's more likelihood to get truth if you do it this way. So they call it pragmatics theory of truth, some people, but it's a joke because it shouldn't be doing truth anyway. it to me, it's a tool. That's it. It's a pre-logic. How the hell pre-logics shouldn't be doing massive work? We can go to logic. We don't need to stay in pre-logic, right? Yeah, logic is there. So you get my point. But so that's coherence theory of truth. Things have to be coherent with themselves. I also do not see how any system of thinking cannot also utilize that. Right. How do you remove pre-logic and all this standards and then actual logic? Are you kidding me? So I think it's an inaccurate thinking. It's not these things are against each other. Right. You're addressing the different types of thinking needed to get to truth.
Like they're stages almost.
Stages, right. So then when you're talking outside the mind, which you still need things to be coherent, right? Even if we're talking about the real world, it still needs to be coherent. So it's not like this loses only to that thing. But you're also using standards, are you not? So you still need pragmatics to me, in a sense, the reason for all this push towards thinking. Anyways, so we'll have a whole video on that. I don't want to go on, but anyway, so you get my say. But that's how I see it. If you go read those things, they're schools of thinking, and I'm like, that's not how I see them.
Right.
And no book, like someone would say, what book do I read, Damien? Well, I haven't read it yet. I haven't wrote it yet, so there's no book for you to read.
Right.
Because I told you
working on it.
Right. Well, I told you before, I just am a natural thinker. So I just heard their thing and went, yeah, you're all right and you're all wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right in that all of what you're saying is good and useful, but you're wrong in the divisions and the way that you're separating yourselves from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So see, you're getting good. You're ready to do some philosophy stuff, I think.
Sure. I'd be looking forward to that. But I guess we've only got about 20 minutes before I got to go. So I suppose we should do some more of this before, because we won't finish today.
Well, the good thing is I already split this up also into two videos.
Right.
So,
okay, where am I? Oh yes, the clashes between whites and Indians grew with the influx of new settlers. In 1832, the Treaty of Payne's Landing promised to the Seminoles lands west of the Mississippi River if they agreed to leave Florida, and many Seminole left at this time. Some Seminoles remained, and the U.S. Army arrived in Florida, leading to the Second Seminole War, 1835 to 1842. Following the war, approximately 3,000 Seminole and 800 Black Seminole were removed to Indian Territory. A few hundred Seminole remained in Florida in the Everglades. On March 3, 1845, only one day before the end of President John Tyler's term in office, Florida became the 27th state, admitted as a slave state and no longer a sanctuary for runaway slaves. Initially, its population grew slowly. As European settlers continued to encroach on Seminole lands, the United States intervened to move the remaining Seminoles to the west. The Third Seminole War, 1855 to 1858, resulted in the forced removal of most of the remaining Seminoles through hundreds of Seminole Indians remained in the Everglades. The first settlements and towns in South Florida were founded much later than those in the northern part of the state. The first permanent European settlers arrived in the early 19th century. People came from the Bahamas to South Florida and the Keys to hunt for treasure from the ships that ran aground on the treacherous Great Florida Reef. Some accepted Spanish land offers along the Miami River. At about the same time, the Seminole Indians arrived along with a group of runaway slaves. The area was affected by the Second Seminole War, during which Major William S. Harney led several raids against the Indians. Most non-Indian residents were soldiers stationed at Fort Dallas. It was the most devastating Indian war in American history, causing almost a total loss of population in Miami. After the Second Seminole War ended in 1842, William English reestablished a plantation started by his uncle on the Miami River. He charted the village of Miami on the south bank of the Miami River and sold several plots of land. In 1844, Miami became a county seat, and 6 years later, a census reported there were 96 residents in the area. The Third Seminole War was not as destructive as the second, but it slowed the settlement of southeast Florida. At the end of the war, a few of the soldiers stayed. Our next map is a map of Florida with the Native American tribes of Florida. So the Native Americans in Florida are the A's. The A's or A's were a Native American people of eastern Florida. Their territory included coastal areas and inland islands from approximately Cape Canaveral to the Indian River. The A's chiefdom consisted of a number of towns, which each led by a chief who was subordinate to the paramount chief of A's. The Indian River was known as the River of A's to the Spanish. The A's language has been linked to the Chitimacha language by linguist Julian Granberry, who points out that A's means the people in the Chitimacha language. The A's were hunter-gatherers, and food was plentiful. They ate fish, turtle, shellfish, cocoa plums, sabal palm berries, and other gathered fruits. Prior to contact with European colonizers, the A's population had grown to several 100,000 and may have flourished for over 10,000 years. A burial mound used by the A's tribe for 500 to 1,000 years rises about 20 feet in Old Fort Park on Indian River Drive in Fort Pierce. This location later became an army fort used during the Second Seminole War, 1838 to 1842, and it may be the location of a Spanish settlement, mission, and military outpost dating back to 1567. The burial mound is several hundred feet around. The Indian River, called the Rio de Ace by the Spanish colonizers, flows by within sight. The Mayaca, who lived among the upper St. John's River south of Lake George, appear to have spoken a language related to that of the Ace. The Suruk in the north and the Jaega to the south were politically subordinate to the Ace. The best single source of information on the Ace at the end of the 17th century is Jonathan Dickinson's journal, in which he makes observations on their appearance, diet, and customs. Dickinson and his party were shipwrecked and spent several weeks among the Ace in 1696. By Dickinson's account, the chief of the town of Jesse, near present-day Sebastian, was paramount to all of the coastal towns from the Jaega town of Job at Juniper Inlet in the south to approximately Cape Canaveral in the north, that is the length of the river of the Ace. The Ace had already had a considerable contact with Europeans by this time. The Spanish became acquainted with the Ace in the middle of the 16th century. In 1566, Pedro Mendez de Aviles, founder of the St. Augustine, Florida, established a fort and mission at an Ace town, which the Spanish called Santa Luca. After the Ace attacked the fort, killing 23 of the soldiers, the Spanish abandoned the fort and mission. Oathaqua was a major chief of the Ace. Governor Mendez de Canco reported in 1597 that this chief led more people than any other tribe. Spain eventually established some control over the coast. At first, the Ace considered them friends, or camarados, and non-Spanish Europeans as enemies. A number of Ace men learned some Spanish, and a patrol of Spanish soldiers from St. Augustine arrived in GC while the Dickinson party was there. One ace man in GC had been taken away by the English to work as a diver on a wreck east of Cuba. He got away when the ship put in for water in Cuba and made his way back to his home via Havana and St. Augustine. In 1605, Governor Pedro de Ibarra sent a soldier, Alvaro Mexia, on a diplomatic mission to the Ace Nation. The mission was a success. The Ace agreed to care for shipwrecked sailors for a ransom, and Mexia completed a map of the Indian River area with their help. Numerous European artifacts from shipwrecks have been found in Ace settlements. When the Dickinson party reached the town, there was already in GC another group of English from a shipwreck. European and African survivors of shipwrecks were fairly common along this coast. The Ace also traded with St. Augustine. Dickinson reports that one man of GC had approximately 5 pounds of ambergris, where he boasted that when he went for Augustine with that, he would purchase of the Spaniards a looking glass, an axe, a knife or two, and 3 or 4 manacos, which is about 5 or 6 pounds of tobacco.
Wow.
That's a lot, hey? It's a good trade.
Yeah. It was never always that good.
No way. Shortly after 1700, settlers in the province of Carolina and their Indian allies started raiding the Ace, killing some and carrying captives to Charlestown to be sold as slaves. In 1743, the Spanish established a short-lived mission on Biscayne Bay in the area of present-day Miami. The priests assigned to that mission reported the presence of people they called Santa Lucas, perhaps a name for the Ace derived from Santa Lucia, somewhere to the north of Biscayne Bay. After 1703, the Ace were absorbed into the Costas tribe. Their numbers had diminished to 137 individuals by 1711. That's a lot different.
Yeah, genocide and freaking oppression will do that to you.
No shit, eh? Diseases brought by the Europeans eradicated the remaining Ace/Costas by the mid-1740s. The Ace disappear from area records after 1760.
And that is why when Florida deals with stuff, they only deal with the Seminoles, in a sense. But the Seminoles also, I know, acknowledge that, and there's some, I think, support even in a small way, that some of the words I heard that the Seminoles have, whatever, they've mixed into their language, are words that come from these tribes that are gone.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it's just from interaction that they got in, or if, like some of them believe that the Creek and the Muskogee came down and mixed with some of these Florida tribes.
Right.
And then that's what people are calling Seminole. So just wanted to make that point too.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though my point is, people say, well, they all were gone. Well, yeah, just like what happened to the Ace going into the other tribe, when they were down to a small population, they went with a bigger tribe. Mm-hmm, and I'm just saying that Seminoles think this happened, and so I'm going to give it, and it seems somewhat credible, especially since the fact that they have some loan words that are probably from these other tribes.
Right.
It doesn't seem outrageous just to believe them then, and there's some support for it, that these, there is. The reason I say this because people say, well, the Creek and Muskogee are outsiders came into Florida. Once, because some people even say once all the other natives were gone, and since people go genocide killed them or whatever, they died off or were taken or kicked off or whatever.
Right.
So they came down. But if it's only that, how in the hell do they end up with some of these loan words?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're saying they picked them up at the top, which, some of the tribes are down by Miami. There's like hundreds of miles.
Right.
Seriously? You think they do it? The words just fly?
Yeah.
Anyways, my point is, so I'm just saying, so to me, in other words, I don't 100% just say whatever natives say I trust, but I do take it into consideration and look and see if there's support. And I'm
Right.
telling you, this to me sounds like it's plausible,
Okay.
or it could be, as far as I know. I mean, maybe there's more information, but
Maybe, but
it
doesn't
seems-
seem unreasonable at this point.
Well, because some things people, say could be, unfounded. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't know. But this one,
Right.
I would say, seems like I could start being convinced, because there's no way that you didn't get loanwords without interacting with people, maybe even intermarrying. And I don't understand why they wouldn't, or mixing if they were a smaller group. I mean,
Yep, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. Like, I mean, we say that the tribe disappeared, right? But
That's my point. I was trying to say.
Exactly. What does that
That's
mean?
what Americans say,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to. Doesn't mean that every person with that, that culture are gone, or that, that.
Yeah, there could have
I just wanted
easily
to
still been people with that descent or that culture.
Right, correct,
exist.
correct. And like I said, especially since the Seminole people say that happened, I'm gonna go ahead and say that it sounds plausible, so I believe it. I don't,
Yeah.
not saying I have the strongest proof in the world, but there is, to me, some proof. Because if there's linguistic proof, that shit doesn't. Just like I know the linguistic proof from Siberia and over to the Americas through Canada and everything.
Right.
Yeah. So these people were related. So they also kind of have similar religious beliefs. Oh, shocker. Yeah, the same culture and language has similar ideas. Oh, wow.
Go figure. Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm just making the comments about what Seminole are. Is that also, I think. And
Yeah, makes sense.
so I know you need to go, so we can go ahead and go ahead and tell us what you're doing.
Not as much as I'd like. I've been working a lot of overtime lately, so I'm not producing content as much as I would like. But we are still trying to keep up with Red Reviews, and I am still slowly working on things. So check out the Skeptical Leftist podcast on podcast apps or on YouTube, and follow me on Twitter or Mastodon. I'm the Skeptical Leftist or the @SkepticalLefty on Twitter.
Right on.
Yep.
Take care.
Thanks.